Good evening. We've got a full house tonight. It's good to see everybody here and getting involved. My name is Jeff Smith. I'm chairperson of the Webster Groves Plan Commission. We are a 9-member board of citizens appointed by the City Council to review development proposals and make recommendations to the City Council regarding future development in the city. In addition to the members of the Plan Commission participating in person tonight, I don't believe we have anyone via teleconference. We have a few other representatives of the city I'd like to introduce. Council member Emily Hickson Shepard, City Attorney Peter Bruntrager, Planning and Development Director Robert, where are you? Robert, and Valerie Wiley, our recording secretary. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's monthly meeting of the Commission and take this opportunity to explain how we operate. As indicated in our agenda, we will begin the regular session of the meeting when we will hear new applications for rezoning or subdivisions. We will hear a staff report and the applicant will explain the proposal. We will then ask for comments from the public. At that time, anyone with an interest in the proposal may indicate to city staff they have a question or would like to express their opinion by clicking on the raise hand feature on Zoom or filling out a speaker card. To make sure that we accurately card your name, we ask that you identify your full name, address at the beginning of your comment. When you make your comments, we ask that you be as concise as possible and not repeat a point made by previous speaker. We also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. One person who is a spokesperson for an organization may have 6 minutes to comment. After all citizens have spoken, the applicant will be asked to respond to any questions that have been raised during the hearing. When we have finished reviewing one proposal, we will move on to the next application. Comments concerning items not on the agenda should be made during the public comment section of the agenda near the beginning of the meeting. When we've completed the regular portion of the agenda, we will go into executive session. At that time, the commission will discuss the proposal and may decide to vote on the application or to postpone the decision. You are welcome to remain and listen to the discussion, but there will be no additional opportunity for public comment at that time. Our recommendations are sent to the City Council. In most cases, the City Council will conduct a similar hearing and must enact an ordinance before the proposal is finally approved. If the Plan Commission takes a vote tonight, the City Council will likely take up this issue at its first meeting next month. If you want information regarding our vote or the progress of the application, you may contact staff at City Hall. I will ask that the recording secretary read the first item in a second. So, the last meeting that was not a continuation several months ago, public hearing was closed on this issue by the council, by the commission. We've had some additional information by the applicant that's been developed in the intervening time. So that's gotten us to tonight. So the sole item on this agenda is a continuation from the August 5th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting. Please be aware that we are creating an ongoing record and everything which was said in August or has been submitted by the applicant or member of the public is already in the record and should not be repeated. We intend to reopen the public hearing based on the applicant's request to present an amended petition application. This means there is an opportunity for public comment at tonight's hearing. Members of the public who wish to make a statement need to fill out a speaker card. All statements must be made from the podium where you will need to state your name and address. This hearing is on record and a complete record includes this information. Statements called out from the floor will not be considered as part of the record. Such behavior is disruptive to the public meeting and may cause your removal. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes to ensure everyone who wishes to make a statement will have that opportunity. In the interest of time, please do not repeat anything that you or someone else has said tonight at a previous meeting. I want to go off script here and say we've had a lot of people here and what everyone has to say is important. But what you have to say is not any more important and you are not more important than anyone else here tonight that is taking just the 3 minutes. So do not exceed the 3 minutes. Ms. Wiley will be timing. We'll have 3 minutes for everyone. I've asked her to give a 30-second warning for people so that they can wrap up their comments. After the public comment portion of the hearing, the applicant will be given the opportunity to answer any questions or present any additional information they wish to provide. This will be the final word before we close the hearing and commission votes on the issue. We are anticipating a vote on the application this evening. Finally, regardless of the outcome of the vote this evening, I want to remind everyone the issue will go in front of the City Council. There will be another public hearing and another opportunity to be heard at that time. So with that, Neil, yes, please.
Mr. Chair, as you indicated, the applicant in this matter requested additional time to respond to questions, and they have in fact done that. Those questions were asked by both members of this commission and by members of the public. Tonight, the applicant has prepared the additional documents which they will be offering as a supplement to the record. These have been provided to the city and they have been posted on the agenda website. In order to reopen the public hearing, there should be a motion to amend the agenda to reopen the public hearing for the purpose of supplementing the record. This requires, of course, a motion and a second, and then a vote. Once amended, I would propose the following order: that number one, the records are received that have already been submitted. Number two, additional public comment on new information be allowed. Number three, the applicants are then given an opportunity to respond. And number four, our planning director, who is new to this position, will then make his recommendation to you as a commission. And then after that, then you would close the public meeting and go into executive session. So at this point, I think there needs to be a motion to reopen the public meeting, and that requires a second with a roll call vote.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to open up the public hearing for 24 PC 06 SLCH KBC Mental Health Wellness Campus.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. We'll do roll call vote as requested by Peter. Maddie?
Aye.
Annie? Grace?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes.
And one thing I overlooked, Mr. Chair, is that I think we need to do an attendance roll call as to who's in attendance. So on the record, we're reflecting who's here.
Okay. All right, we'll go again. Please state your name.
Maddie Heikela.
Oh, sorry, I have no voice. Annie Tierney.
Grace Clapper.
Steve Hunkins.
Tony Hunt.
Michael Butcher.
Kyle Wilson.
And Chairman Jeff Smith. All right. So we have reopened. Now we can continue with the.
Yes,
normal-
And
yeah.
so we would reflect for the record that the additional records that were presented by the applicant are now part of the public record, and those include, can you pull up the list? Those include the preliminary development plan revised concept. That's exhibit number 2. Number 3, the preliminary development plan revised and detailed. Number 4, the traffic impact study summary dated 10/21 of 24. Number 5, the traffic impact study peer review dated 10/21 of 24. Number 6, the traffic impact study summary final dated 10/21 of 24. Number 7, the North Rock Hill Road crash analysis memo dated September the 9th of 2024. The number 8 is the Bompart Kirkham crash analysis dated September the 10th of 2024. Number 9 is KVC Children's Hospital Campus Security Plan concurrence letter. Number 10, continuance request received September the 3rd of 2024. Number 11, the continuance request received September the 24th of 2024. And number 12, the additional written public comments that were submitted after August the 5th of 2024. In addition, in the top of this, the first exhibit would be the report and summary that would have been prepared by Robert Myers, who's the planning director.
Okay. So we have records received.
Yes, sir. And now I would recommend that you open the floor to public comment on the new information.
All right, and let the applicant respond as well as present anything additional on the information they've developed.
So what I would anticipate, because the applicant always gets the last word
Right.
because they have the burden of proof, I would anticipate that the applicant will wait until all the public comment has been made, and then they will respond to any questions that were posed.
Do we need to
Yeah,
review and approve? the
We've still got a
minutes from
couple,
August?
yeah, we need to
do
approve
minutes.
minutes
Still
and
need to
things
do
like
that.
that. Yeah,
Mhm.
right. All right, so let's go to item 2, Mr. Secretary.
Item 2 is approval of minutes from the August 5th.
Make a motion to
2024
approve the
meeting.
minutes. Approve the
Second.
minutes.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, minutes are abstain. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Have 2 abstentions. All right, thank you. Item 3 is typically public comment on items not on the agenda. Does anyone here want to comment on an item not on the agenda? Thank you. All right. All right, so per council's recommendation, we will open up to public comment. Can I have the cards, the speaker cards that have been filled out? All right, I'm going to go through these and call you up.
Needs to read that. Open the
Do we need-
public hearing for this.
Oh,
For the staff, some of the public documents provided by the applicant are not accessible at the links on the website page. We have hard copies or,
I don't have hard copies. I was able to access all of them. I'm not sure why they would have been.
You were?
accessible or
I
inaccessible.
was not able to.
Weren't you? All right.
okay, I was, yeah.
I can get to most of them. I can't get to the traffic study summary.
Okay.
That would be item
Yeah, can we have somebody?
4.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could, folks that are here, you're in the walkway for people that have to come here. So I'm going to have to suggest that you move. You can either move over there or in the back, but standing right here won't allow people to have access to the podium. We'll see you.
Yeah, I think we need, yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Grace,
Yeah. Yeah, can we, yeah, please. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll get that information printed. Thank you, Grace. All right, first speaker tonight, Wendy Orson.
Hi, good evening. Wendy Orson, 2830 Spring Ridge Drive, St. Louis 63129. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Is that better? I'm Wendy Orson, the CEO of Behavioral Health Network. BHN is a network of mental health providers and professionals who work together to identify community needs and establish partnerships to try to address those needs. I'm also speaking today as a parent of 2 young adults who continue to navigate the challenges faced by youth today. Youth mental health issues in Missouri and across the United States have been increasing. 1 in 6 children experience a severe mental health disorder at some point in their lives, and studies have shown that the pandemic has only made this worse by increasing rates of anxiety and depression. But sadly, it's estimated that almost 20% of these children with mental health disorders will be the only ones that get appropriate treatment, leaving 80% to not get that help. These statistics reflect a growing crisis in youth mental health. But despite the rising demand, we face challenges to provide adequate mental health services due to insufficient resources, including inpatient care options. On any given day, including today, an estimated 40 kids in Missouri are being boarded in hospital emergency room departments, stuck in a system that does not have the capacity to care for them in the way that they deserve. This has a serious impact on the youth and the families who are desperately trying to get their children help. Families are often left feeling helpless, frustrated, angry, which is causing increased stress and anxiety on that family already experiencing those feelings. School performance of the youth is impacted. While these kids are waiting for care, they miss school. They miss opportunities to socialize with other kids. They miss out on the normalcy that they need in order to heal and recover. So the bottom line is that we need more resources. A mental health campus like the one being proposed helps to alleviate these issues. It adds capacity for care and does so in a calm community environment that is surrounded by other children who are getting their needs met. It provides quick access to appropriate inpatient care to help stabilize youth before their conditions worsen, because we know that when they remain in an ED setting for so long, they run that higher risk. So as a mental health professional, I am thrilled that KVC and Children's Hospital will bring about new resources to this region. And as a parent, I think we can all say we want what's best for our children, and we owe our kids the best chance to overcome from their mental health needs. And for many in this region, and for the kids in Webster Groves as well, this could very well be their best chance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a comment card with no name or address on it, so if you don't get called, that's probably why. But you can wait till the end to find out. Robert Hookler.
Robert Huckler.
Hookler, sorry.
That's okay. 18 Haven View, St. Louis, Missouri, 63141. Greetings, Commission. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Robert Hukler, and I proudly serve on the Board of Directors and as a co-chair to the Advocacy Committee for the National Alliance of Mental Illness of St. Louis. I'm pleased to represent NAMI St. Louis in expressing our strong support for the proposed state-of-the-art children's behavioral health treatment in this neighborhood. And we thank you for the opportunity to speak on it. NAMI St. Louis is dedicated to improving the lives of children and adults with mental health conditions and their families in the St. Louis region. And for more than 46 years, NAMI St. Louis has worked to promote the development of community mental health programs and services, change public attitudes about mental health conditions, improve access to services, and increase opportunities for recovery. We understand that some residents have expressed concerns about the proximity of this facility to their neighborhoods. We also understand that there may be concern about the quality of care provided by a previous provider of the children's mental health services located at that property. However, we as a broader St. Louis community must instead prioritize the untapped potential and the necessity for care to those who need it the most, and not be dissuaded by past negative experiences or hypothetical future concerns. Children and their families who are in crises rarely have more than one option to receive appropriate and, in our opinion, as NAMI St. Louis, life-saving care. In today's post-pandemic society, psychological well-being is inseparable from one's physical health. Providing appropriate support is only possible with the support of all community partners and facilities, which today are unfortunately woefully inadequate to meet the needs of our children. Given the world-class reputation and practices of St. Louis Children's Hospital, we are confident that this facility will not only be safe, reliable, and trustworthy, but that this facility will also be a beacon of change and support for children who need it the most, especially given the counsel and quality management of the experts from Washington University School of Medicine. This facility will provide the essential support for children experiencing mental health crises to receive excellent and timely care necessary for their recovery.
30 seconds remaining.
We have the utmost confidence to the world-class caliber and rigor of St. Louis Children's Hospital and Washington University. Given the national, if not global, reputation and history of care, we are confident all previously stated issues of traffic and fire hazards, use of public utilities, and other criteria which the Commission must consider making its decision will be rightfully addressed. In closing, we believe that this new facility will positively impact the general welfare of the Webster Groves community and all of St. Louis. We ask that this commission
Expired.
approve the proposed facility. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say Molly Brown.
Hi,
Hi.
I prepared absolutely nothing, but I just want to introduce myself.
Go ahead.
My name is Molly Brown. My sister,
Address, please.
508 Eagle Ridge Drive in
Thank you.
Union. My sister was Angie Burke. She was the nurse that lost her life at KVC back in March. I oppose this 100% because they need to show more training for the safety of their students and their staff. My sister was 51. She had no training at all to work in that kind of environment. KVC needs to be held accountable for what they've done, and their name should not be with Children's Hospital. Children's is fantastic. KVC has shown over the time nothing but bad things. If you go back and Google everything, you'll see all of the things that they have been accused of, FBI raids, this, that, everything. They do not show enough consistency with training their staff. From what I understand, paraprofessionals are given rooms and they're teaching these students. I'm pretty sure there needs to be some very in-depth training to work with children of those special needs, which we fully support the needs of those children. Please don't misunderstand that. We know that there is a need for this. I just don't think that this is the right partnership at all. That's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Burke.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Burke, and I am Angela Burke's daughter. And I'm going to be reading something in honor of her and basically what KVC took away from me.
Can you provide your address, please, just for consistency with everyone? Your address?
Oh, 2708 Turnberry Park Lane.
Thank you.
The love from a mother when you are a young 6-year-old is different than no other. Nothing can ever prepare for a child for their parent to die, because in a little kid's mind, your mom dying seemed impossible. You'd always go to your mom when you scratched your leg and fell down. You'd always go to your mom crying when someone was being mean to you. No matter what, your mom was always there for her to for you to run into her arms. That's what I thought too, until I got the call that my mom had been in an accident involving not enough training within a student at the KVC school with mental health issues, and ended up in the ICU with a brain bleed in critical condition. A week later, I heard the sirens in the hospital room scream, code blue, and my mom's ICU room number flowing through the entire hospital. I knew my life would be forever changed. The KVC school made my 6-year-old self and my 17-year-old body never to be able to hug my mom for the last time. I sat there in shock as I had to tell the doctors to stop all treatment and watch my mom slowly start dying. There was a gap of silence where the sound of machines keeping her alive used to be, and I instantly wanted to be that little kid in my mother's arms. But in reality, I would never be that 6-year-old self anymore. The words and actions of the world can surround you, and you forget to take a second to slow down the world is when the world hits you even harder. Even your friends talking to their moms start to become a little unsettling. I would give anything to be a 6-year-old again and run into my mom's arms and tell her how much I appreciate her, because I would never get to be that same child ever again because she was ripped away from me. I will forever be left with the trauma of my mom being taken away from me and never forget her love. KVC took a daughter's mom away from her as only a 17-year-old. Overall, the KVC school ripped my mom away from me, and there should have been more guidelines within the school. I see how many may believe a new mental hospital connected to KVC may aid to those who need mental help, but we need to consider the lives and boundaries KVC discarded throughout their company. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Julie Cohen.
I'm Julie Cohen. I live at 242 College Avenue, Webster Groves. I'm in opposition of this. But I want to make clear that I think I speak for my neighborhood that we all support children's mental health. And this faulty rhetoric and this faulty messaging is awful. And I just want to tell you all that you can vote this down and you still support children's mental health. You do not need to feel this like because we do. It's never been about that. And this trying to turn it that way the entire time, everyone's energy has just been about that versus actually telling us why this is a good location. It's all about the location. This isn't the appropriate location. We've gone into a lot of reasons why it's not the appropriate location. I don't need to go into all the details, but you guys know it. It's a residential neighborhood. It's 2 tiny, narrow lanes. Snowplows can't even get up our streets. But also, let's talk about why it's not a good location for BJC and KVC and children's. Okay, everyone's proven that mental health is a terrible thing, and it is. I'm a public school teacher. I work with these kids every day. It's my life's work. I know we're in crisis. Why limit us to 65 beds? Why put it in a place where there's no room to grow? Why put it in a place where there's no highways, there's no hotels, there's no affordable places to people to eat? Sorry, we didn't know that we got to speak tonight until we walked in. Just trying to. Oh, yes, I remember now. Additionally, on the flyer that was handed to all of you, talks about the 65 inpatient beds for those who need close medical supervision and care, but then it also details that there won't be an emergency room. Shouldn't there be an emergency room? Shouldn't this be next to a trauma center? Like, again, it doesn't make sense why a hospital, a psychiatric
30
hospital, high
seconds remaining.
acuity, wouldn't be next to an emergency room, wouldn't be next to a place where ambulances can turn on their sirens. Everything they're telling us doesn't make me feel better about the place. We need this place. Make it amazing. Put it somewhere where it can be the best place in all of America. And it can be this bastion to other places. Like, this is the best place. Let's all make more of these. Put it somewhere appropriate. Put it somewhere where it can be big and room to grow. I think this solution is really short-sighted. I think it's trying to fix something because we're in crisis,
Your
but it's
time has
not the right
expired.
place. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Andrews.
Kathy Andrews, 2802 Beehive Place, 63129. My name is Angie, or Kathy. I'm the mom of Angie Burke. And I'm here to have Angie to have a voice in all of this. KVC needs to have no say, no involvement whatsoever with this hospital being here. They failed her miserably without enough training, without helping her through. She was capable with her job as a nurse and her expertise, but she was not prepared for the incident that had happened to her. Safety protocols were not up to speed. They were not checked. They were not updated now and then. This type of hospital, school needs so much training, and the people should know how to take care of the children when they're way out of control. That's their job, is to de-escalate those children. So incidences like this will never happen to anyone else. I would never want anybody to lose a child. I wouldn't want any parent to feel the pain that I have faced to endure. The location, again, of the hospital is the wrong location. It's so close to residential. Alternately, it could be a danger factor to the rest of the community if kids were to get out. I can't say enough how much that I oppose this. I just think there wasn't enough training, not enough safety protocols. They seem to have put the safety protocols over the training and taking care of the staff and the student. Please do some research on KVC as well as Great Circle. Great Circle was closed because of all the investigations that they had. KVC swooped in, took it with no significant changes. They have a lot of issues as well. And if you read several stories in that, it is frightening what has happened to some of those children and some of the staff, which should not happen in a position like that. I understand the kids need something somewhere.
30 seconds remaining.
This is just not where it needs to be. But I just want to thank you, and I want everybody to think about safety so that no one else has to go through this. And I'm showing. I wish you all could have met her. She was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Teresa Murphy. Going once. Going twice.
My name is Teresa Murphy, and I am at 222 North Rock Hill Road. And we just heard a compelling mother, sister, and daughter saying this is the wrong spot. It would be like if any of you had this happen to you, your family, I get that mental health is an issue. And like other people in this neighborhood, we all really want mental health to be something that is first, a first state of the art place for people. It is not in Webster Groves. KVC does not have any other places that are in a residential area. And I mean, I just think that going above, I mean, I've almost been hit by a car 4 times just crossing Rock Hill, and I wear a vest. I mean, I walk my dog and I wear a vest. I mean, the traffic alone is a nightmare. We have kids right down the street at a Webster Grove school in Rock Hill. I don't know what the traffic says, but I'm just positive it can't be great. We had a policeman out there the other day. We had 4 people run the stop sign. So that is right at the corner of Gore and Rock Hill. This is right where that is. I believe that our community wants mental health. We do. We want, just like the last person said before the Burks, it just shouldn't be in our neighborhood. And I don't know why we can't vote on it from Webster. Like, it should be something we vote on. Like, not just you guys, but Webster. I mean, could you please consider that? And that's all I have. And I'm sorry for your failures.
Thank you. Beth Kreckler.
I'm Elizabeth Kreckler. I live at 408 Foot and Rock Hill, right on the corner there. And I've looked at all the brochures and information that's been sent out, and I just found questions. I'm at a corner where the traffic definitely has to increase. And I've seen traffic will be taken care of, but I've seen nothing about percentages or amount of vehicles that are going to come down my street. I'd like something more concrete about what would happen to my street. I sleep on that side of the house too. My bedroom's there. Secondly, I've read both that there have been other hospitals like this put in residential areas, and I read that there haven't been many put in residential areas. Somebody pointed out to me that they did say where they are located. I'm sorry, I have macular degeneration and I missed that. So I don't know where other residential area hospitals are. And I'd like to see how they have come along. I'd like to know what other locations have been considered besides Webster. I haven't heard any other alternatives offered. I know there's a lot of property out there by St. Clair Hospital that's empty and it's right off the highway. We're certainly not off the highway. I'm looking at the picture of what they're building, and the information said a park-like setting for children. And then I read that they're going to build a 12-foot fence. Those don't match at all. This is my investment. Webster, my grandfather built a house in Webster, and I've lived in Webster 84 years. And it's my investment of what I've worked for all my life, my home. And I hate to see the property prices go down, which I'm sure they will. And it's the first time in all those 85 years, it's only in the last 25 that North Webster's really beginning to look really nice.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Megan from Christ Lutheran.
I'm Reverend Doug McLaughlin. I'm pastor at Christ Lutheran Church in Webster Groves, just down the street. My address is 5314 Lindenwood. I came here tonight to tell you a story. We have heard stories tonight, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate these stories. I have a story to share as well. In my congregation, there are 20 youth from the ages of 13 to 17 who are active in the life of the congregation and this community. Most of them live in Webster Groves and attend Webster Groves schools, and all of them live within 10 to 15 minutes of here. G, one of my youth, is an amazing young person who's 14 now. They love going to plays and concerts, even with their mom, if you can imagine that, at the age of 14. They're bright and inquisitive, have loved exploring questions of faith, and spend hours listening to and creating music of their own. They've struggled with mental health challenges since they were young, and in the last 2 years, they've been hospitalized twice, and they're now struggling with addiction as well. In October, they spent a week in a hospital in Columbia, Missouri, because there was no place closer to home. The youth of my congregation, those struggling and those doing well, have taught me how different the world is today, in good ways and in bad, from what I grew up with. Access to social media and its impact on mental health, the prevalence of gun violence, the level of hatred in our public discourse are beyond anything I've experienced. These youth love their families and community and want to make a difference in the world. And I believe that all of us in this room, every single one, wants to love and support our children in whatever ways we can. As a pastor, I want to invite you to know G's story and realize that G and all youth, regardless of the challenges they face, deserve to be seen and treated with love and respect, and not labeled as dangerous criminals and others out of fear. KVC and Children's Hospital, close cooperation with Webster Groves first responders, their commitment to follow protocols and guidelines that go
30
along
seconds remaining.
with being designated as a hospital will ensure that the youth, staff, and the community around them are safe. That is absolutely critical. The partnership between KVC and Children's will provide support and hope for so many youth who desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Duffy.
Scott Duffy from 169 West Kirkham. I have 2 children. They're teenagers. And I had the unique opportunity to have one of them go through a mental health crisis recently. In fact, in August, I called 43 treatment centers around the St. Louis area, the Missouri area, and beyond. They are not all full, but they all are very expensive. And I can tell you one of the places that I called was the Springfield KVC branch. I could not afford to have my son go there to get the treatment that he needed. There's been a lot of talk tonight about how important this is, that people have the opportunity, people in Webster Groves have the opportunity. Well, I live in Webster Groves and I could not afford KVC. These aren't going to be our kids up in here. You know, it's going to be, I don't even know who it's going to be. But the thing is that what we're all kind of walking around and dodging is the fact that KVC is going to make a ton of money. And
What?
Sorry, that's talking to me. Interestingly, I went recently on a trip. I had to go to Kansas City, and there's so much open land between here and Kansas City. I just cannot understand how, you know, a place like this, you know, one of the treatment centers I found in Blackland, Missouri, or any of the other 43 places couldn't be expanded. Why it has to be here, I get that Great Circle was shut down, and I get that they did a bad job, but the problem is before they got shut down, there were a lot of problems. And I think that the problems were having such a place in this neighborhood. My son, who was 11 or 12 at the time, was on a walk in our neighborhood and was chased by two Great Circle people that worked there, believing that he was a runaway from the school. We've had no less than 6
30
people
seconds remaining.
tackled within viewing distance of our, kids tackled. It's not a place, Webster Groves is not a place for this to be happening. We already have a track record of a hospital of a much smaller scale that doesn't work in this neighborhood. Why are we, tripling the amount of beds that are going to be here? It's ludicrous. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Callie Bishop.
Hello, my address is 597 Harper Avenue in Webster Groves. Everyone, I'm Callie Bishop. I'm a resident here in Webster Groves. I live here with my husband and 2 children. I'm also a child and adolescent psychiatrist with Washington University and St. Louis Children's Hospital. I am in support of the partnership, and I think my position as both a Webster resident and a psychiatrist makes me believe that this is the right partnership with St. Louis Children's Hospital and at Webster Groves. I love living in Webster. I think we can all relate that it's a wonderful place to raise a family. I think the big thing about it is that it feels safe. And this is something I really want to share with the community and people who are suffering. We've heard a lot of stats about increasing mental health. The other thing to add is that, suicide is still the second leading cause of death in our children. And I'd love to use the resources that we have to help these people. And I have seen this work well in Webster before. I worked at McCallum Place, which is an eating disorder facility here in Webster Groves. It's in the building that is in the Froyo. It has the popular Froyo Place and has robust wine bar, and it provides mental health care and robust kind of, close to residential community. And I think one thing that really resonates with me is talking to parents and families saying how wonderful it was to have a space for their loved ones to heal in such a great community. And I would love to use this and share this with others. I believe in St. Louis Children's Hospital. I've worked now with them for years. I feel like they would be a great partner, and I feel like this is a unique opportunity to have a world-class mental health provider like St. Louis Children's Hospital to give great care in a wonderful community. So thanks for hearing my words.
Thank you. Davis Maddock.
I'm Davis Maddock. I live at 107 College Avenue, the corner of Kirkham and College. Honestly, the first thing I want to say is I find it so distasteful that KVC is choosing to use messaging that anyone who'd be opposed to this project doesn't support children's mental health. Not one person has said it in either the June or the August meeting. No one has said it in our neighborhood discussions. We have the North Webster Neighborhood Council. No one is opposed to the idea of childcare at all. I mentioned in the August meeting, don't need to go over it. I've spent time in a mental health facility. It would be insane to suggest that the opposition is anything to do with more mental health care. I agree with the child psychologists and the doctors who have spoken. The thing that I mostly find is an issue now is I just want anyone to be in charge of this but KVC. KVC hired a consulting firm to email people who were opposed to this individually. They got our emails from the public record. George Stock Consulting emailed all of us individually to try and dissuade us, to try and get us to change our opposition because they know it is a big eyesore. It's kind of hard. Now they have BJC involved. BJC is annoyed. They just want to get it going. I mean, if you've driven by, they're already doing the construction. This is we all kind of know it's going to get done. BJC and KVC are going to get what they want. We're all just sort of here saying our piece because we know that it's not a particularly good idea. It's a bad environment for it. KBC has never explained why this property, why not a different property? Why not in an area that it makes sense? Why not an area? Well, I mean, you can do a little bit of math and realize they probably got a pretty good deal on the facility and the land because the old facility was raided by the FBI. So it probably was not a particularly difficult financial transaction for them. And every step of the way, KBC has been unwilling to communicate with people who live in the neighborhood. Any communication was either done through a back channel, or we are now the signs say we support children's mental health, which then frames the people who have real questions about KBC's integrity and their operating procedures as people who don't like children or want children to suffer. It feels very inappropriate.
Rudy Douglas.
Good evening. I'm Trudy Douglas. I live at 715 Eunice Avenue here in Webster Groves. I've been a resident of Webster Groves for 37 years. Along with my husband, we have raised our family here. I've taken great pride in Webster Groves because we're a community that cares. We take care of our families, we take care of each other, and especially our kids. And we've done so on campuses just like the KBC campus within our community. And that campus has been here long before I've moved to Webster Groves and our neighbors moved here. It's been here for years, decades. I've been very disappointed about the comments that I've heard, that I've read about preserving the character of the neighborhood. And I've been shocked to hear the comments back and forth about the characterization of children with mental health needs as being criminal or undesirable or dangerous. As a parent, I cannot imagine having a child who has needs of this type and not being able to get the services here in my community or close to my community. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about preserving the character of Webster Groves. And my definition of character isn't property values. I don't define character by that. Instead, I define our character and our community's character by doing what's right for our community members. And in this case, I mean our families and our kids. We have a great opportunity to do this right now with Children's Hospital and KBC, and do it on a campus that already exists within our community and provides care to our kids. I ask you, the City Plan Commission, to make your decision and your recommendation based on facts, not emotions, not even my emotions, but on the facts. Evaluate what the requirements are, what have the studies said, and what have the surveys results. And I ask you to make that decision
30 seconds
based
remaining.
on our character of our community and doing what's right and taking care of our families and especially our kids. Thank you.
Denise Wolf.
Janice Wolf, 4723 Black Hawk Drive. I'm here as a mom. This is a picture of a child that has had multiple psychiatric hospitalizations. He has autism, an intellectual disability, and bipolar disorder. And individuals with a developmental disability are up to 50 times more likely to have a co-occurring mental illness. We have been turned away by almost every hospital in St. Louis because he's nonverbal. He can't participate in therapy. Twice, he has been at Children's Hospital on a surgical floor because BJC was the only hospital that would keep him. Taking your child to a psychiatric hospital is the most agonizing thing you can go through. Nothing prepares you for it. They take your child, can't have belts, can't have shoelaces. You can't go back and see where your child is going to stay. It is heartbreaking. You can go on during visitor hours sometimes, but it is excruciating. And sometimes we couldn't even make the call. We had to have our daughter call because it was the emotional toll that it took was just too overwhelming. He was at Great Circle before it was Great Circle, and it was awful. But I can tell you my most poignant memory of Ethan being at Children's were the public safety officers that held his hand and walked up and down the hall with him. The security, I have no doubt that the staff will be incredibly well-trained and mostly incredibly compassionate. The trauma of being hospitalized is unbelievable. Mental illness affects everyone. But with early intervention and compassionate care, it makes a difference. It makes a difference to families like mine. It makes a difference to the kids. And I have to say, I know that there are plenty of other places in the state. We stay in St. Louis because this is where the good doctors are. The fact that we can access doctors from the Washington University School of Medicine, you have no idea how important that is. We are blessed to have a psychiatrist
30
on
seconds
staff
remaining.
at Washington University School of Medicine. You have, I thank God every day that he is being treated by world-class doctors, and that is worth everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Michael Hutchinson.
Hi, my name is Michael Hutchinson. I live at 446 Bacon Avenue, right down the street from this project. I spoke in August about the traffic study that was performed for the previous iteration of the traffic study. I just wanted to come back and give a little update. I have been given the new one to review. I wanted to at least comment that I think it's nice the consultants went back. They did do their due diligence looking at existing, future. They brought in a second consultant to do a peer review who does a lot of studies around the St. Louis area as well. I appreciate the fact that they took some of the concerns that I saw in the study with the level of service F at Bismarck. They moved that entrance away from where it was going to be so that there's no longer a level of service F. So I think they took some of the feedback from a traffic standpoint, incorporated it in here, and I appreciate that the applicant took the time to do that. One thing I wanted to bring to the city, and this is maybe more of a comment for Public Works now. There, with the additional traffic that is going to be on Rock Hill, there is a sight distance issue at both Bacon and Bismarck, trying to get out of those side streets onto Rock Hill because of the parking that's on the east side. It's not really a problem for KVC because they're on the west side, but on the east side, it is hard to see where that permeable pavement parking is along that east side. It is hard to see sight distance wise to get out. That would be something I'd request with the additional traffic, that maybe the city take a look at that, maybe kind of shrinking that parking area a little bit so that the residents can get out a little more easily, a little more safely with the fact that there's going to be some additional traffic there. But otherwise, I just kind of wanted to say I was appreciative that they actually took the time to review the comments and make some changes to the study and the site plan based on some of the traffic comments. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Dunn.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Dunn. I live at 111 Summit Avenue in Webster. I've been a resident of Webster Groves for nearly 25 years, and I am a parent of 2 daughters, an adolescent and a young adult. I am also a pediatrician in a busy primary care practice. Over the last few years, it has become increasingly clear that my patients' psychological well-being is inseparable from their physical health. And a growing part of my practice is providing medication management and referrals for patients with a variety of mental health needs. Current local services are woefully inadequate to meet the needs of my patients and all of the kids in the St. Louis metro area. And the families I care for are faced with long wait times for specialty care or frustrating hours stuck in general emergency departments waiting for safe and appropriate inpatient admission. These kids are not dangerous, and they and their parents deserve excellent, compassionate care. They are my daughter's classmates, my neighbors, and kids of our friends, and you cannot tell who they are by looking at them. They are kids with depression, disordered eating, severe anxiety, and a history of self-harm who need supportive care. I know about issues that have occurred on this campus in the past, and I am sympathetic to those who have borne the brunt of these problems. But I also know and trust St. Louis Children's Hospital, and I am confident that they will take care of not only the patients served by this new state-of-the-art facility, but also the staff and the neighbors. I am proud to be a member of the Webster Groves community, and I know that this project will distinguish Webster Groves as a leader in banishing the stigma of mental health treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Paz.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Paz and I live at 740 Landscape. I just wanted to talk about my son and his experience at Children's. When I became a parent, I never dreamed that my son would spend his 15th birthday anywhere but with our family. 72 days, that's how long he was in the hospital. And just for a minute, I would like to speak with the parents. I want you to imagine that your child is having a mental crisis. It's a heartbreak you can't even imagine. When you've already been through countless medications and you're at your breaking point, where would you go? But did you know that Children's Hospital is ranked as the best hospital in Missouri for the last 16 years and is in the top 10% nationwide? They're known for their brilliant doctors and expertise, and I experienced that firsthand when my son was having a mental health crisis. I want to give you a firsthand glimpse of what his care was like. He was in the behavioral health unit. This is a secure, locked unit. However, for the patients, it's an open unit where they can walk around freely, receiving therapy, interacting with caregivers, and receiving constant observation. It always remains locked. In order to visit your loved one, it's required that you are on an approved list and you have submitted your personal code. Then you are given access. For added security, the children wear monitoring devices so that everyone remains safe at all times. In the 72 days he was there, I was never concerned for his safety, whether being hurt, lost, or running away. The staff was filled with compassion and were truly some of the most beautiful people I've ever met. That's why I felt confident in Children's Hospital, knowing they were voted the best in the state for a reason. I feel so fortunate that we have these doctors and that he received exceptional care. And my desire is that all kids in this community that are struggling receive the same care. Mental illness doesn't discriminate based on culture or community. This is happening in our community, and it happened to my son. We are in a mental health crisis in this country. The quiet girl on the soccer team who's missed the last few games, the checker in the grocery store that always used to smile. This is just a few examples. We need this facility. And we have to trust that if Children's Hospital is willing to put their award-winning reputation on the line with KVC, that it will be operated with the same ethical standards and security measures that we have come to appreciate in the city. If you can't trust Children's Hospital, who can you trust? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Clark Hoteling.
Hello, I'm Clark Hoteling, 118 West Cedar Avenue in Webster. Good evening. I'm speaking tonight as a 24-year neighbor of the KVC property, a member of the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, and as a member of Churches Together for Justice. The North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, Churches Together for Justice, and I are very much in support of this proposed project between St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC, Missouri. It makes me feel very proud that this incredibly necessary project will take place in my community in my neighborhood. I'm saddened by the anti-project signs, but I understand and empathize with several of the stories tonight. But I ask, what is a neighborhood? What is a community? And what the heck does keep the character even mean? To me, neighborhoods and communities are places that welcome all people, whether they are Black or white, are male or female or trans, are homeowners or renters, live in a single family home, a duplex or an apartment, are of any income level or wealth status, or as in this case, are children suffering from mental illness. Our character is defined by how we welcome and support those among us. Children have been served on this land long before Webster Groves was a city, long before there were any zoning laws, and long before any residents who opposed this project chose to live here. The children showed the real character, in my opinion. They welcomed us to their neighborhood. This project will enhance and positively affect the character and general welfare of our neighborhood and community without being a burden. Let's show our true character and courage by welcoming the children that need us and supporting those that provide much needed health care for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Rogers.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Cynthia Rogers, 660 South Euclid, and I am the Division Director and Vice Chair of Child Psychiatry at Washington University here in St. Louis. I'm a former Webster Groves resident, lived here for almost a decade, and would probably still be here if I could have found the house with the attached garage. But I think you all laugh because you know what I'm talking about. But I did live here for quite some time, and I really love Webster Groves and loved how welcoming Webster Groves felt for me and my children. The children in this community deserve a place where they can receive world-class care. And what I want some folks to think about is where could that be? Where would we want our schools to be? Do we want our schools next to highways, surrounded by other tall buildings? Or do we want them places where there's lots of green space and place for children to get out and move around and to see something beautiful from their window? We all know how important that is for the well-being of children. That's why we spend so much time making our schools look so beautiful. And that's what we, as physicians who care for these children, want for them when they are sick and they are away from their parents and they are desperate to feel better and to feel welcomed and to just feel that there is some hope for them. So that is one of the reasons why we want it to be in such a beautiful place, because that's what children need when we are asking them to recover from very serious life-threatening illnesses. And they need the opportunity to leave and go outside and play and have recreation. These are the sorts of things that they can't get in our current unit at St. Louis Children's Hospital. As the physicians who will be working in this facility, we expect to provide the same high level of care that we provide now in the hospital, but in a campus that is worthy of a place of healing for our children. It has been very disconcerting to hear about our patients spoken as if they are criminals or are menaces or dangers to the community, when in fact they are the children in your community, as we've taken care of hundreds of children from Webster Groves. These are the same kids that your kids go to school with. These are the kids that your kids play with. These are the kids that you see walking down the street and that you see at the schools here in Webster Groves.
30 seconds remaining.
So these are the same kids that we want to take care of in a world-class facility that will bring a lot of national focus and attention to the Webster Groves community, and in a place where these kids can heal and see beauty around them. So thank you so much for considering this proposal.
Thank you. Leslie Hinyard.
Hi, Dr. Leslie Hinyard. I am at 242 Worthing Drive in Webster Groves. I've lived here about 16 years. And I'm a researcher, I'm a former social worker, but I think most importantly, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a child that has had some mental health issues, but I've fortunately not had to go through the process of trying to find a place for them to go. I am going to tell a story about 2 years ago when my daughter texted me frighteningly saying her friend, one of her best friends, was going home that night to try to commit suicide. And her friend had confided in her. And she called me, and I had the joyous occasion to call her mother and have a conversation with her. Her best friend then spent 2 days in an emergency room because there was no bed available in the St. Louis region. 2 days in a general emergency room, sitting there in a bed, waiting for a spot. We in Webster Groves have the opportunity to provide that spot. These children are not dangerous. They are children who we need to help because they are the next generation that are going to move on. They are our friends. They are our friends' children. They are our children's best friends. The rhetoric that we care about mental health while saying not here is just saying that I don't care enough about your children. I only care about mine. It's saying I don't want them in my backyard, that I don't feel that we have a need to support these families in our neighborhoods. And I want to live in a Webster Groves where I know that care is provided and available for all of our children. They are not a danger to our neighborhood. They are a part of our communities. We have an opportunity here to create a world-class facility and to make sure that no other child is spending days sitting in an ED, in an emergency department, waiting for care. And if we're not going to do it here, then where are we going to do it? Because out in the middle of nowhere, where kids don't have access to transportation to get there, is not the answer. And I haven't heard one person that has said, we don't want to do it here, tell us where they think that would appropriate location would be. This is the appropriate location. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Lauer.
Thanks. I'm Mike Lauer. My address is 4700 Steeple View Court. And I'm here to talk, I'm a representative from BJC, and I'm here to talk about the security plans that we have put into place for this facility. This facility will provide 24/7 coverage. It's a partnership between KVC and St. Louis Children's Hospital Public Safety, which is also part of BJC Public Safety. There will be several initiatives that have been put into place for security that have been practiced at St. Louis Children's Hospital. One of them is elopement tags, which if you think about healthcare, when your loved one goes and has a baby, the baby gets a tag that identifies when it gets near an exit. This would be something similar that we would use for the clients, the patients at this facility. We talked a little bit about fenced in areas. They're fenced in for the privacy of the patient, but they're also fenced in with unscalable fencing to protect the patient and to keep them within that facility. And then lastly, BJC has values that we portray, that we espouse amongst our staff. And those values are our CREST values. And it's compliance, it's compassion, respect, excellence. We heard the compassion a little while ago about the public safety officer that led the patient by the hand through the hospital. But the last two are safety and teamwork. And safety is part of what we're presenting today as our security plan. But teamwork is also partnership. And what I pledge to you as a representative of BJC Public Safety is that we will work with local law enforcement, that if there is an issue, that we're responsive to the community as a whole, but we'll be responsive for any incident that would occur in this general area. So thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, for those of you wondering, we're about halfway through, so we're doing well. Thank you, Valerie. A lot of good input, so we'll keep going here. Eric Spiegel.
Hi, I'm Eric Spiegel, 722 Huntwood Lane. A lot of wonderful stories tonight. I'll tell you my story. I've been working at St. Louis Children's Hospital as sometimes the only child psychiatrist since 2011. And if your kid had an overdose because of their mental health challenges that weren't met, you got to meet me most of all, because I was the only one working there. And I saw people in lots of stages of crisis over the years, and I have seen it get worse. I have seen there be much more patients in need. St. Louis Children's Hospital has stepped up to the plate and has addressed these issues, and now they're saying we want to do more. I want our community to have the best evidence-based treatments. I want our kids to have access to the treatments that I know will help them, but I can't access. We've heard from a pediatrician. Ask your pediatrician, what's the one thing that they wish they had more access to for their patients? If you have a pediatrician for your kids or your grandkids, ask them that. That's a good experiment, because I think I know the answer, and I want to help provide that answer in a greater capacity to help our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashlyn Sappington.
Ashlyn Sappington, 3001 West Adams, St. Charles, 63301. I'm here in support of the partnership. I am a foster parent and adoptive parent. I have 7 kids in my house. I've had over 50 kids in my house through the years. There is a huge shortage of beds for mental health facilities in the region, most recently with my 8-year-old daughter, who is currently inpatient at KVC in Columbia in a residential facility. She's had 4 inpatient hospitalizations in the last year. We have waited 5 days in the emergency room for a bed and then have been moved to Springfield, Missouri to access treatment for her. It's extremely disheartening and stressful for not only her, but also our whole family during that time. Being hours away for her for treatment is hard because as a parent, I want to do family therapy. I want to have visitation to get her back in my home. It's incredibly hard to do that at this point in time. Before we've gone through this, we see psychiatrists through Washington University, as my wife is currently employed with them. And so we have had a huge partnership with them and know how excellent their care is. And I can speak firsthand that St. Louis Children's is absolutely the best psychiatric hospital in the state, and I have experienced many through the years. As far as KVC, we have been super impressed recently with our daughter's inpatient residential treatment. They have been wonderful, and we have had experience with Great Circle at St. James and Columbia in the past. I have seen improvements to their campus and security particularly, and I think that's extremely important. And not only in security, but we've seen construction and just making the place more beautiful, not only for the children, but for the community. I think one of the big things is mental health facilities seem really scary to everyone involved. And from what I've seen from both KVC and children, they are safe and they are needed. And I just urge you to approve this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Connie Evans.
Connie Evans, 512 Plateau. We, the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, wholeheartedly support the St. Louis Children's Hospital KVC proposal excuse me, on the former Edgewood property in North Webster. The North Webster Neighborhood Coalition is a 30-plus year nonprofit that strives to serve as many in the Webster Groves community as possible, with an emphasis on North Webster. We focus on honoring the rich history and cultural heritage of the legacy African American community. We assist and help neighbors in need. We engage in charitable efforts, and we address neighborhood concerns. The North Webster Neighborhood Coalition and the City of Webster Groves have long traditions of supporting institutions and efforts that assist children and families with special needs who are undergoing stressful situations. We do not believe the proposed mental health facilities, staff, or children pose an inherent danger to our community. Quite the opposite. We feel the project is an asset for our area. We are a caring and compassionate community. We do not turn our backs on those in needs when we have a reasonable opportunity to help. We acknowledge that there have been documented instances of problems at this facility in the recent past, but we feel strongly that St. Louis Children's Hospital is and will continue to be a strong community leader who will address safety issues in partnership with KVC, our city, and our neighbors. Indeed, we urge and expect the hospital to continue to engage with key stakeholders, especially our concerned neighbors who live in proximity to the proposed facility, and to implement common sense and verifiable safeguards that ensure a safe, secure environment for our patients and the public. We strongly recommend the Webster Groves Plan Commission and the Webster Groves City Council to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Anderson. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Anderson. I live at 317 Bristol Road. Thank you for your time. I'm a 35-year resident of Webster Groves. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a mother of a child who struggled with mental health issues. I'm going to ask that everyone in this room please pause for a moment and think of someone you love who has struggled with their mental health. This could be your child, this could be a friend, this could be a spouse, this could be yourself. Think about that person and how you would do anything for them. For me, that person was my son. My son struggled with mental health issues from the time he was in grade school until the day he took his own life at age 28. Even as a nurse working for the largest healthcare provider in the state of Missouri, I struggled to get my son access to the care that he needed and when he needed it. When your child is in crisis, you feel helpless and terrified. You need help from someone you can trust. The simple fact is there just isn't enough mental health care or enough of the right mental health care available for kids and parents today. I cannot even begin to tell you what I would have given to have a place in a community such as Webster Groves, my home, to help our family. That is why I implore you to approve the new facility so that parents have access to care to help their children. Having a child who is struggling is overwhelming. Not knowing how to help them is terrifying. Not being able to get them the care they need is devastating. And losing them is a pain that no parent should have to experience. I know this. I am here today because I do not want any other parent to go through what I and my family
30 seconds remaining.
have gone through. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Meg Lane.
Good evening. My name is Meg Lane. I live at 466 West Lockwood in Webster Groves. I am here as a resident of Webster Groves, a mother of 2 daughters who attend Bristol Elementary, and also a member of the Board of Trustees of St. Louis Children's Hospital. As a Children's Hospital board member, I have an inside view of the management and governance and can confidently say that the decisions made by St. Louis Children's Hospital's team are always rooted in their mission of doing what's right for kids. It's a world-renowned children's hospital, consistently ranked as one of the top in the state and the country. In 2019, the hospital opened their first pediatric behavioral health unit, a 14-bed inpatient floor on the existing medical campus on Kings Highway. As soon as the unit opened, it was full, and it has remained so with a wait throughout the last 5 years. It's been evident for the hospital for a long time that our region has significantly fewer inpatient beds for kids who need inpatient psychiatric care, and outpatient behavioral health services are few and far between. In response, St. Louis Children's and BJC Healthcare conducted a comprehensive national search for a partner to help address this pediatric mental health crisis. St. Louis Children's chose KVC for its expertise in child welfare and child mental health. KVC is a well-recognized national leader in pediatric mental health wellness services and has been for 50 years. They operate multiple inpatient hospitals in our region, are opening a 4th in partnership with KC Missouri Children's Hospital next month. As a parent, seeing how kids are being impacted by our rapidly changing world is scary, and knowing that we don't have enough resources to help them is alarming. As a community member, I understand the neighborhood's concern about traffic and safety, and these are important concerns that should be addressed. I live on a busy street here in Webster, and I live 4 blocks from the KVC campus and drive up and down that street every day, so I understand the concern. But I believe this opportunity to design a new facility and include the latest technology with the combined resources of both Children's Hospital and KVC can provide a top facility for children, their families, their
30
staff,
seconds remaining.
and the surrounding community. I want everyone to understand St. Louis Children's is the majority partner in this venture and is committed to making this site a success for everyone involved. I think we in Webster Groves have a chance to provide our region with this improved and expanded place for kids to heal in a beautiful setting, and I hope that you'll support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Alec Hill.
Thank you. My name is Alec Hill. I live at 247 South Forest Avenue in Webster Groves. My wife and I have lived there for 44 years. We're hearing a lot in favor and opposed to this proposal. But the common ground that I hear in all of this is that there is a great need for a children's mental health facility. Am I right? And we have a unique opportunity to meet some of that need. So I just wanted to leave you with a challenge and a question. Can't we go forward in a spirit of cooperation rather than obstruction? And let's find a way to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. John Pantanella.
John Pantanella, 458 Sherwood Drive. Been a resident here about 20 years, and I come to you speaking as a parent. One of our children, we have 4 children. One has mental health struggles. He's 28 years old now. The last 14 years have been a living hell. Different than maybe some of the other parents you heard from. We have more resources than most people in the country. Not only financial resources, but contacts. and it was impossible to find a place to put my son. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars sending him out of state to get help. And because it was such a trying time for my wife and I, we said, what do you do if you don't have money? What do those families do? It takes a toll on your family, your marriage. The other kids get they don't get any parenting because all the parenting time is on this one kid that needs help. And so as a consequence of that, I own a pretty large business, and now every one of the families that have children with mental health issues, I take it upon myself and I send them somewhere. Usually have to send them out of state because we don't have the resources. It's not just a crisis in the United States, mental health. Like it's a supply and demand problem. And we don't have enough supply. We're not even close to having enough supply. I think you should build 10 of these places. The tough part about leadership is that it's tough. You're never going to please everybody. But what I have asked myself is, how are you going to please the most people? How are you going to make a decision where the most people benefit? And I think it's putting, this place here in Webster.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a Dr. Galgani.
John Galgani. I live at 126 Gray Avenue. I've lived in Webster for 33 years. I'm a pediatrician in private practice for the last 35 years. You've heard the folks talk about our dire need for mental health. I've been involved at Children's Hospital. I was the president of medical staff for a time. And while I was in the medical executive committee meeting and at board meetings, trying to beat the drum to get mental health services for our children. And I guess I'm talking too close to this.
There you go.
And so this is our opportunity. We need to strike now and get this done. And I really hope that you folks are going to be making the right decision for our children to do what's right for kids. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ann Abed.
Good evening, I'm Anna Abad. I'm at 118 Glen Road, and I've been a resident of Webster Groves for 30 years. Thank you for letting me speak. I also happen to be the president of Missouri Baptist Medical Center. So I have experience running a large hospital in a residential neighborhood, in that case, Town and Country. And I know that my colleagues at St. Louis Children's Hospital and BJC Healthcare will take pride in being a very good neighbor as well. I have the daily proof that a hospital and a neighborhood can coexist peacefully and that they can actually benefit each other all at the same time while meeting an incredibly dire care gap. So we've had success at Missouri Baptist, and this hospital will have a much smaller footprint, actually. While a hospital like Missouri Baptist has people coming for x-rays and lab draws and same-day surgeries, this hospital will have none of that kind of churn. What I can promise you is that St. Louis Children's Hospital and Washington University physicians will be incredibly good neighbors and a model partnership for Webster Groves. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Garcia.
Hello, I live at 245 College Avenue, so just a couple hundred feet from KVC currently. And we've, obviously heard a lot of anecdotes tonight, a lot of stories, and honestly, they do pull at the heartstrings. As a neighbor, I can tell you that we've had a very tough time when there was a residential facility there. And it did not change when KVC took over. It changed when the residential facility was removed. Imagine rushing your children inside, locking the door as someone tries to open your door and destroys everything on your porch. I hope that doesn't happen again, but we all know if you live nearby that there are many, many, many of these types of stories. But there's been a lot said already tonight, but I guess I just want to ask some questions that my neighbors and I who live in the vicinity have. We've heard a lot from Webster residents. We've heard a lot of BJC employees tonight, but what's going to happen when they try to expand? If this zoning goes through, what's going to happen when they want to build? Will we have a say? Will we be able to control it? We've already heard that we need to build it and build it now. What's going to happen when it gets bigger? What's going to happen when they continue to buy up properties around the site? There's already 2 properties that are owned around the site. What's going to happen when, like other nonprofit organizations in Webster Groves, have bought up residential properties? What effect is that going to have on our future goals as a city? When I went to the Webster Future, I'm sorry, I forget the name of it, a couple weeks ago, a big thing was, what is the tax base going to look like? Citizens are concerned. What is that going to look like? Another question is, we've heard from the petitioner that they've used images of Webster High School. They've talked about being in a community. Will they give preferential treatment to Webster residents to be part of the community? What's going to happen when somebody elopes again and is on our property? Are they responsible for that? There is currently police traffic there and rescue traffic there multiple times a week. It's only going to exacerbate.
30 seconds remaining.
If those services are there, that means other Webster residents will not have those services. Those are facts.
Thank you. Christine Byers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Byers. I live at 5820 Marquette, St. Louis, 63139. I'm here tonight on behalf of KVC to support this project. And I'm here to speak for my son, who can't speak for himself. He is 10 years old, and he has been a student at KVC Academy since January of last year. I also spent the majority of my career in journalism, here working for the Post-Dispatch for about 15 years before I went and worked for Channel 5 for the last 5 years. And I recently left journalism for a career that would allow me to spend more time with my son. So I can tell you that when the school district told me that they were going to send my son to KVC Academy, and I started doing my research, I almost fell off my chair because I thought, my God, that was Great Circle. And I was at the Post-Dispatch when we were doing the investigations into Great Circle and all of the scandals that went on there. And we took pride in the work that we did to right those wrongs. So I decided, you know what? I need to give KVC a chance. So I went there. I demanded a meeting with all of the administrators there, and I said, how can you convince me that this is a different place than Great Circle? And they said, let us show you. And my God, have they ever. My son in the last year has improved, which is not something he was doing for a very long time where he was. I completely trust the staff at KVC. And when I found out that this facility was here in Webster Groves, another thing that made me feel comfortable with this decision was Webster Groves. I always thought of this community as a very welcoming, rich, diverse community and welcoming. And now every day I drive by these signs when I come and pick up my son that are in opposition of this project. And it irritates me because it comes from a place of ignorance. Because if you would truly take the time to get to know what is actually being proposed here, and the fact that Children's Hospital selected KVC for this very special project, I don't know how you could be in opposition, other than you don't want it in your backyard. And I think that is not what Webster Groves is about. I thank God I heard from residents
30
tonight that
seconds
live here
remaining.
that are in support of this proposal for that very reason, because they believe in the importance of a welcoming community. And they don't want it by a highway, and they don't want it in the middle of nowhere that makes you look like you're casting off your problems to somewhere where they won't be. And I want to know what the story is going to be. If this gets built and it becomes the success I know it can become with the people of Children's and KVC running it, and Dateline and everyone else
Your
comes
time
here to
has
tell the story,
expired.
what's the story going to be?
Thank you. Natasha Morris.
Hello, my name is Natasha Maris. I live at 935 Newport Avenue, and I'm a resident of Webster Groves. I'm speaking here as a child psychiatrist who works at St. Louis Children's Hospital and a parent. I've lived in Webster Groves for over 10 years, and I was drawn here from the Southampton neighborhood, which I enjoyed very much, by the creativity, openness, and beauty of our community here. As child psychiatrists, one of the major challenges we face, even with the training I was fortunate to receive at St. Louis Children's Hospital fellowship, is not the issue that we don't know what care to provide our patients, but that we don't know how to help them and their families obtain it. This is something I saw throughout my training. I finished in 2012. And I continue to see it when I work with fellows, supervising them in their ER cases, and see the same thing over and over again. Patients, children in crisis who can't get to where they need to go, families in crisis who are agonizing because they don't know what to do, kids who may not be exactly the right fit for some of the higher levels of care that are out there, but at the same time are having a hard time being with their families and being a member of the community. And so when I heard that my colleagues in St. Louis Children's were working on this partnership, I have to say I was very excited. I can't imagine what it would have been like if during my training, when I was seeing patients in the ER, I knew that there was a place like this that I could refer patients to. And that I could take into account their individual needs at different levels of care, the way this property or this project has been conceived to be doing, thinking about not just the acute crisis care, but also patients who would benefit from residential care and some time to transition back to the community, and outpatients, who don't need that same intensity. And again, if they get that care sooner, if they can get an appointment faster, they might be able to continue to be with their family and friends, and to have, good quality of life that we all want. Having trained at St. Louis Children's, I have to say that I trust, how thoughtful and compassionate our care model is. We do try to be very careful and evidence-based, and we
30
want the
seconds
best.
remaining.
Thank you. We want the best for all the folks who are at this facility, which will include not just the inpatients, but also the residential care folks and the outpatients as well. So I see this opportunity as a hopeful one, and thank you for considering.
Thank you. Jeannie Kirkton. Oh, she's.
Good evening. Thank you. Jeannie Kirkton, 659 Tuxedo Boulevard. I spent several years in my nursing career at BJC and their system. And my time in the Missouri House, I worked closely with the St. Louis Children's Hospital on child health legislation. I know them to be an exceptional, caring institution, and I believe that they will keep our community safe and be good and responsible neighbors. They're rated the top 10% across the nation St. Louis Children's Hospital and the #1 children's hospital in the state. When you hear the word hospital, it conjures up images of chaotic acute care trauma centers. That is not this facility. When you hear the word security, it equates with danger. The security for this system is to keep kids safe that are intent on self-harm. The need is clear, and if they meet the criteria, it's my hope that we'll take this opportunity to move this forward and to let them allay our fears, is what they are, and strengthen Webster's long and caring history of caring for kids in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Conway.
Good evening. My name is Tim Conway. I live at 404 Bacon Avenue, directly across Rock Hill Road from the KVC site. I've lived there for 30 years. The irony of KVC's campaign of cognitive dissonance tonight is not lost on me. Being characterized as ignorant, uncaring, insensitive wasn't really what I was expecting tonight. These stories of your personal experiences with mental illness are heartbreaking, but I bet everyone in this room, myself included, has been impacted directly by mental illness. According to the Webster Groves document, Objectives and Policies for the Future Comprehensive Plan, there have been a succession of zoning ordinances and comprehensive plans, all designed so that the city may benefit from the latest and best thinking regarding its future, keeping in mind the fundamental objective to maintain and enhance residential quality. How does allowing the construction of a large mental hospital in a residential neighborhood align to that fundamental objective? It doesn't. This facility will have a significant and irreparable impact on a quiet and peaceful neighborhood. When my children were small, we used to love walking around the community garden that was located at the rear of the property. That wasn't until an Edgewood worker informed us we were unwelcome there due to the danger of being untrained professionals near so many high-risk kids. Given their houses on College Avenue that are closer to KVC than the garden was, and the frequency and risk of elopement, how is the future situation safer for us and our neighbors? The reality is it isn't. It won't be. It will be more dangerous. At the August meeting, we heard from a Webster Groves resident who lives on the south side of Webster about how great it is to have the Miriam School here in Webster Groves, where his son attends. Having lived on Bacon Avenue since before the school was constructed, I can tell you that twice a day, every day, Miriam School traffic is a dangerous nuisance to the people who live, walk, and drive on Bacon Avenue, which does not have sidewalks, and Rock Hill Road. It's easy to envision the problem being significantly greater if KVC is allowed to move forward. Something I haven't actually
30
did here.
seconds remaining.
Before I go, I'd like to ask the commission if they've already made up their minds. Tonight, we've heard from members of the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition, and we saw the letter in the paper last week about their wholehearted support of the KVC project. One of the members of this commission is the treasurer of that organization. Two other members of the executive committee of that organization serve on the city council.
Your time has
KVC
expired.
already has your wholehearted support. What are we even doing here?
Keith Borders.
Hi, I'm Heath Borders. I've lived in Webster Groves for 16 years, and I'm raising 2 children here. I've heard many voices tonight saying so many words, not in my backyard. Someone even said the quiet part loud, this might hurt my property values. We have a chance to be part of a solution to the children's mental health crisis. I've read the emailed concerns and repeated themes that this will change the character of the neighborhood. I'm sad that people oppose construction of necessary social services on the grounds of neighborhood character. I've had to put 2 close family members in mental health facilities for long-term care against their will, and I'm thankful that such facilities existed close to their home where family could regularly visit them. Webster Groves could provide that essential service to many families in our surrounding area. Many towns are going to need to change their character to accommodate societal changes, and Webster Groves needs to lead the way. Let's show leadership and grow our city to provide essential services to the entire metro area. I'm here today to support KVC and St. Louis Children's Hospital and urge you to approve their plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Andrews. I had a sticky note.
I'm Kathy Andrews.
Huh.
Do I know to be?
Has she spoken? You spoken? Thank you. Okay. Corinne Austin. All right.
Hi, my name is Corinne Austin. I am a Webster Groves resident. I live at 127 Madison Avenue. I'm a resident and homeowner and have lived here for 6 or 7 years. I'm not sure exactly. I've lost track of time. But I love Webster Groves. I didn't have planned remarks when I came today. I did come to support the proposal. The things that stood out to me the most from some of the other comments were essentially along the lines of, why don't we build this somewhere else? And I've been thinking about that, listening to some folks' remarks. And I think at the end of the day, we all know that most people don't want this in their backyard, unfortunately. This is the kind of thing that people would rather have somewhere else, out of sight and out of mind. And the reality is that no location is going to be perfect. If there was a plethora of beautiful, peaceful locations for a children's mental health facility that was affordable and conveniently located, we wouldn't have the drastic shortage of beds that we've all heard about tonight. The way that this happens is that communities like ours refuse to open our doors to children in need, and we keep passing the buck to other neighborhoods and other communities. And I think, unfortunately, this is a case of letting perfection potentially be the enemy of the good. As a Webster Groves resident, I would love to have this in my backyard. I know that it's not perfect, and I understand. I was deeply compelled by many of the testimonies against this tonight, to be honest. But ultimately, knowing how hard it is to find a location for something like this, I hope that my neighbors will consider joining me in supporting this. I think it's the perfect place where I would want to send my children to recover and heal. I would want my kids to be in a place like Webster Groves that is peaceful and centrally located and close to home. So I hope that we can stop waiting for another community to open their doors to this, and we will step up and do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Atwell.
Hi, thank you. Dana Atwell at 223 College Avenue. And I am in opposition to only the location, and it is not because I'm ignorant. I would like to say that I am for mental health, children's mental health. I think all of us are. I think that has been so well stated across the board. So I won't spend too much more time on that fact. But what I do think is really essential is that we look at where we are located. And it's not this idea of like in my backyard. It would be in my backyard. But the idea is this is residential. And with all due respect, MOBAP is not a residential community. We laughed at a comment about an attached garage. And like, it's true though. We don't have attached garages that can fit all of our cars. why are we looking at a location then that is directly kind of so embedded in this neighborhood? And we've worked really hard to keep our neighborhood very safe for children and for residents. And I think that we are a very welcoming community. I have a lot of questions about why we're looking at this particular location. And this has nothing to do with BJC. Again, they have a great reputation. What this has to do with is why this location? And why has this meeting been postponed so many times? This room is filled. It has been filled since, well, the July meeting, August meeting, postponed several times. And I also want to know what's in this for Webster. These concerns are really like why planning and zoning is around. Like, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the ability to get emergency vehicles through here? We do have noise ordinances, light ordinances. We have these things because we have a community that we really care about. And I don't think it's right to say like, nope, this is just a NIMBY issue. These are reasons that we have our community. This is a reason that planning and zoning is able to make a recommendation to the city council. These are real facts. And I hope that your minds have not all been made up, that the stories are compelling and the reasons and the residents' concerns are compelling too, to really question why this location. This is very, very different from all the other KVC Children's Hospital partnerships around the state, which are located not just out in rural communities, but in other spots where we've talked about having some easier
30
to
seconds
access
remaining.
resources. So the biggest issue for me is why this location and what is in this for Webster? Are Webster patients and children the ones who are going to be receiving a certain amount of extra care here? No, I don't think so. I think that we're talking about, as people have talked about driving their kids all around the state, this is also what's happening here. So is this good also for Webster? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Robert Miller.
Robert Miller, 8915 West Haven Court, between Crestwood and Sunset Hills. And I have a lot of friends over here in Webster. I came to St. Louis University to get a PhD degree in mathematics. And this is the time in which the Fortran language was announced, engineering scientific language. And my father had taught me this because he was another computer guru. And when I got to St. Louis University, he had told this to the dean of the math school. And they hopped on me and said, will you teach this course? Because they had all these PhD candidates who now on a computer, we had to upgrade the computer at St. Louis University. Yalem shoe manufacturer owner donated the money for the Yalem Computer Center. So we had an updated computer, and I could teach these PhD candidates. They were in physics, chemistry, geophysics, mathematics, engineering schools, business school. I could teach them this language in about 20 or 25 hours because it was such a simple language, which, as I indicated, my father had taught me this at home because he knew the language and he taught me the language, and I knew it very, very, very well. I was a guru. And I was teaching PhD candidates in all these areas, and they were super smart people. You don't get to be a PhD candidate to write a dissertation. And there was no software like there is today where you didn't have to learn any. There were all kinds of statistical programs out there. So I was able to teach these kids, these students and PhD candidates in 20 or 25 hours. So my question is, and it's a very simple question, why build this hospital out here in a residential area? Why not build it down there on Kings Highway where you have the Barnes Jewish Hospital, you have the Siteman Center,
30
you have the
seconds
medical
remaining.
school. All right, so thank you very much.
Amy Wilson. Sorry?
It's hard to stand up off that floor. Thank you. So, I live at 619 Bacon Avenue. I moved here 29 years ago. Edgewood was the facility on the site that we're talking about. I never had a problem with a mental health facility being in my neighborhood. Never had a problem with elopements that would happen from time to time when my kids were young, when it was Edgewood. I knew this was where I was living and I was fine. I do have a problem with the proposed facility. And I will get to that in a minute. There have been, I was making notes and changing notes throughout because so many people were speaking. And there have been a lot of very, very good, strong points, both for and against this proposal. My concern that was eventually brought up, I was listening and nobody was bringing up this concern, but one person did, is that once we make a partnership with a hospital on this site, when will that building stop? The reality is there is a need. There's a huge need for a mental health facility, for many mental health facilities for kids, and they will expand because they need to expand. So how can we ensure that this project will not get bigger and bigger and bigger? It's a lot of green space there. There's a lot more space that they can build as they start building once this is approved. They will need more. The reality is they will need more than the proposed beds because as we've heard from everyone, this is a great need. But we can't support that on that site. This space is not appropriate for the need that we have. Hospitals are constantly building. Yes, BJC is a great hospital. I work with many people that are doctors in, WashU, BJC, Children's. They're excellent. I have no problem with the hospital, but the reality is that hospitals build and they build and they build and they build. If you have not been living in St. Louis, then, it's everywhere. And they will just keep growing. And how can this site support that? And how can we ensure that it's just not going to keep expanding? And in 3 years from now, they're going to come back because they
30
don't have
seconds
enough
remaining.
beds. I support that there's a serious need for more mental health facilities in Missouri, but again, this is not the right space. So I'm asking you to vote against this proposal because they will need to expand beyond what they're telling us that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a John Pantanella. It's different handwriting, but I'm going to assume it's the same person that previously spoke. Dave Buck.
Excuse me. Dave Buck, not 124 South Elm. I live at Colonial Village Apartment C. I'll be very honest, I'm split right down the middle, and I have great respect and empathy for both sides, all the residents on both sides of this equation. On one side, I'm 71 years old. I am mentally ill. I have been a bipolar manic depressive since high school. I have been one of these teens that we're talking about, but with the right care and treatment, even today at 71, I haven't killed anybody. Well, not yet anyway. And then about 4 or 6 weeks ago, I've been on Porch Fest in the Northwest Webster neighborhood. I'd barely gotten into that neighborhood. I didn't know anybody, but I met a bunch of neighbors. Beth, you're one of them. Remember Porch Fest? Dave Buck? Well, maybe we'll talk later. But we put on a great event, but these are wonderful people, great parents, great neighbors, and I hear them. So I'm on the side of these kids in this facility. I'm also on the side of these neighbors, and I am split right down the middle. That's why, to me, the most important word spoken today was by this man in the red shirt. No, behind him. When he mentioned the word cooperation, which has to do with peacemaking, which has to do with conflict resolution. And see, we have a process in this town for the 24 years I've lived here that doesn't give peace a chance. You guys will vote and it'll be like the Roman empires. We vote yes, we vote no, you know, and if you vote yes, it'll go up to city council, but you're not voting win for peace. Yes, no. Goes to city council, same thing. And then the city council votes yes, the residents may raise up and force a community vote, and it's yes, no again, but not win for peace. And I think there's an opportunity to do that if we're willing to change the process or just modify it a little bit. And to me, I would bring in for 2 hours.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, a professional mediator to meet with both sides for 2 hours only to see if you can't reach some cooperation in the middle ground. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least you're going to give peace a chance to try to work. So all I am saying is give peace a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Willis.
Hi, I'm Daniel Willis, live at 38 Villawood Lane. I'm a physician at St. Louis University, or at St. Louis Children's Hospital and at Washington University. I'm not a psychiatrist, and neither WashU nor St. Louis Children's Hospital asked me to speak here. And frankly, I really didn't want to, and I apologize to anyone who groaned as they saw one more card get added to the stack to add 3 more minutes onto your night. But I do worry that my silence would be louder if I don't. I'm a father of 2 children, age 7 and age 10, both of who have needed medical care. Both needed pediatric subspecialists and both needed it emergently. I hoped to never need this care, but I still did. I'm incredibly grateful to have a world-class hospital within a few minutes of where I live. Similarly, I hope that neither of my children will ever require mental health services, but if they ever do, I would want it to be at a facility designed for that purpose. Without this facility, the children who are in need of it are elsewhere. These children are not okay, they are simply out of sight. They are boarded in the emergency room for days. They are admitted to units that were not designed to care for them. They are already in our neighborhoods and they are in our schools because we are a community of families. You have heard that we are in the middle of a mental health crisis. I would love to not need a facility like this, but that is not the reality. Why can't a facility be built somewhere else in a different community? One should be. And one should be built here, and one should be built in St. Charles, and one should be built in North County. I came to work at WashU to work with leaders in healthcare and to do my best to make a difference. I moved into Webster Groves to live in a city that is an example of what community should look like. We have a need and we have an opportunity to lead. I do not believe that this facility will be perfect, but I do believe that we need to try. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have 1 card with no name. If your name hasn't been called and you would still like to speak, you may come forward now. Good. Good. Anyone rushing in from next door? All right. Okay. Apparently we have 4 online. So can we, yeah, let's invite those folks to speak.
Please give your full name and address. Sorry, Mike asks if you please give your full name and address. You've been unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Michael Shear. I live at 424 Bacon Avenue. Over the last 3 months, I have heard a lot of information from a lot of people related to this, and it's a tough decision. And kind of like the gentleman before me, I kind of sit on the fence somewhat in terms of what is the best thing related to this. My one concern that I have right now is the fact that KVC and Children's Hospital has had 2 months to reconvene, to get more information together, present the information to the city of Webster Groves. To the best of my knowledge, that information was only available as of Halloween on October 31st. So KVC and Children's Hospital has had 2+ months to do their research, provide more information, obviously getting a marketing campaign going related to it, which I respect because that happens on both sides. But I would request that no vote, at least no vote for a yes, be made tonight, simply because of the fact that we in Webster have only received this information 4 days ago. And Children's Hospital and KVC and their plan, they've had 2 months to plan what their response was going to be. So that is my request, that at least no vote, at least for a yes, be created tonight, because I don't think that's fair to the Webster residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate Medlin, you've been unmuted.
Hi,
Please
thank you.
identify yourself and give your address.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Katie Medlin. I live at 432 Bacon Avenue, just down the street from the KVC Children's site. I spoke at the last meeting and asked if a site study was performed, and I'm very disappointed that no site study has been provided to date. That said, just today, I drove by the former Youth Bridge site on Olive Boulevard, which is less than a half mile from the BJC West Hospital site, and saw that it was available. It's lovely. It has beautiful trees. It seems like an ideal location. There are other similar sites available throughout the region, and I'm sure that Children's, with its large operating budget, could afford it if they so chose. Looking at KVC, they appear to mainly operate inpatient hospitals across the Midwest. After essentially being handed the former Great Circle site, it is unsurprising that they've proposed to build yet another lucrative hospital. After all, when your only tool is a hammer, everything is a nail. Tonight, we see lots of folks in support of the project because of Children's involvement, and I totally understand it. I have also been in need of emergency mental health services. But however, many of those in support have been directly called to the mat, essentially by Children's and KVC, to speak in favor tonight. I ask that we don't build a hospital just because KVC and Children's happen to have made a business decision rashly instead of doing a thorough study to determine the absolute best location for a state-of-the-art facility. We, as a region, need to demand that they do what's best for kids, families, and their communities instead of putting it on the backs of Webster residents just because it's easier to just build it here. Finally, I'd like to remind the city that Section 53.173 specifically says that the council is responsible for determining whether the proposed uses for rezoning will not impact traffic or congestion, fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood and the general welfare of the community, or overtax public utilities. Given what I've seen so far, this is not true of this project. I urge the city to consider very carefully this proposal and to request additional studies that are not funded by wealthy institutional hospitals to determine if in fact those criteria are actually met. Finally, I remind the commission that this isn't a vote on mental health, but it is a vote on if a large hospital facility of any sort
30 seconds remaining.
is appropriate for the North Webster community. Thank you.
Thank you.
We did Mike, right? Kyle, okay. Okay, we're unmuting Kyle Notmeyer. Mr. Notmeyer, if you'll identify yourself and your address, please.
Good evening, Kyle Notmeyer. I live at 608 Bacon Avenue. I will just ask the question, why do we have zoning? I believe zoning is part of a city plan to protect the neighbors around them. And that in this particular case, it's the immediate neighbors adjacent to the property. And so I think it's really important to listen to those immediate neighbors' concerns. Also, the zoning process and rezoning process Anyone that's been through that is very familiar that before you invest heavily in designing a facility, you would look into rezoning that property. And KVC has clearly gone really far in that process with the assumption that they were just gonna essentially steamroll the community and do what they wanted to do. So that's a little bit concerning. Also, as mentioned previously, that when you change zoning, you're opening it up for other uses and other people to, you're setting a precedent.
Hey,
for
could you
additional-
close the door? I'm about ready to talk here.
for additional changes like that in the future. So it's just a bit of a bad precedent to set. So there needs to be something that is clearly an improvement in this rezoning. So I've yet to see that improvement. Again, maybe just because of the late coming details, but I would like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We finally have one more, Hans Mugler, I'm sorry.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak tonight. My name's Hans Mugler. I live at 403 North Rock Hill Road, corner of Rock Hill and Bacon, directly across the street from the KVZ proposed site. I am not in favor of the project. Let's be perfectly clear. There's almost no one I could think of that would be in this room or online that is against children's health, welfare, or well-being, or taking care of kids in our neighborhood. But let's also be clear about some other things. This is a for-profit situation. This KVC, BJC, everybody there is out to make money in this area. There's just no doubt about it. The gentleman spoke earlier in this conversation about his son, his mental health issues, and he wouldn't have been able to afford KVC. He tried, couldn't get in. That's a Webster resident. So how many other Webster residents are going to be boarded out from this place because they just can't afford the service that Webster wants to provide? Yeah, there's been a lot of great things said on behalf of the children, the phenomenal folks, these great doctors and psychiatrists and folks from the Webster area that came out to speak tonight. Hats off to your IT department for everybody at your institutions letting you know to speak tonight. As far as the opposition goes, the entire street, the community, blocks around the facility are all predominantly not in favor of this project. It was on KMOX radio a couple of weeks ago. They had a nice little roundtable discussion about it. Again, Planning Commission is going to make up their mind one way or the other if the deal hasn't been made already. But I will point out again one thing that Katie Medlin spoke a couple of people before me. Katie did a great job of speaking, said a lot of things that I wanted to say, but I will point out again that for this conditional use permit, the City Plan Commission's job was to investigate, among other things, that this proposed use and structure would not affect the character of the neighborhood or change the general welfare of the community that is being proposed in. The criteria used by the Webster City Council provide specific thresholds for approval. The council may grant a conditional use permit should the applicant prove by a preponderance of competent evidence that the proposed use will not, among other things, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood and adversely affect the general welfare of the community. They have failed to do that. It is their job to show this is not going to change the character.
30 seconds remaining.
It is their job to prove to the residents that this is not going to affect the general welfare of the community. They've lied to us from top to bottom, and they haven't proven their point. This cannot be passed by law. By Webster's law, this cannot be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to everyone for their comments. We will now invite the applicant to address anything that's come up tonight, and I'd like to hear a little bit about the updated information, traffic, and other studies.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, council member, Mr. Bruntwager, and Valerie. For the record, my name is George Stock. I'm with Stock and Associates Consulting Engineers, and I'm here this evening on behalf of St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC. Before I get into the remarks in the slideshow, just a few comments relative to many of the comments that were made by concerned citizens, both pro and con. I've had the privilege of working with BJC, St. Louis Children's Hospital, for the last several decades. I've been involved in the Missouri Baptist campus. I've been involved with St. Louis Children's Pediatric in Town and Country. I've been involved in WashU Orthopedics in Chesterfield, St. Louis Children's Pediatrics in South St. Louis County. I'm very familiar with dealing with residents and the issues and the concerns. I see it all the time. I'm the guy that started reaching out to the neighbors a few weeks ago. So after the August public hearing before this planning commission, I took the time to watch the YouTube video, listen to all the people that spoke and take down their comments and formulate responses. And part of formulating the responses was building on the professional team. There's a very good team here that's involved, from architect to traffic engineers to civil engineers involved in the project. But there was many comments that were made that left open questions. And so the reach out that I did is consistent with what I typically do. I reach to the residents, I come to the city, I obtain hopefully a phone call or a telephone number or an email address. I took the email address and I reached out to the residents. There was only one that responded, and that's fine. That was Mr. Hutchison, and it was about the traffic related. And I wanted Mr. Hutchison to know that what we've been doing. So for the last 2 months, we haven't been doing nothing. What we've been doing is engaging second traffic engineers. We've been looking at the security plan, meeting with the police chief and meeting with the fire chief in order to come up with the appropriate answers and responses. So with that said, what I'd like to do is take the next few minutes. I have 7 slides to go through, and many of these questions and comments that I'll present in this presentation should address those that were asked tonight and asked in August, and some of which the Planning Commission had indicated. So as we move forward, so about the proposal, many of you know it, but St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC are partnering to create a new mental wellness campus that will provide kids and families facing mental health crisis the care they need in world-class facilities, with highly trained staff providing a full range of services to meet the needs of today's kids. And our request, and this is a fundamental understanding of everybody, our request is to repeal ordinance number 881, which was adopted in 2013. So not too many years ago in comparison to the time that this campus has existed. That ordinance created the major educational zoning district. But what we're asking is to revert back to the underlying zoning that existed since 1920, and that's the A3 zoning district. The A3 zoning district allows hospitals and institutions as conditional use permits. So again, we're going back to what's been there. The ordinances of the city of Webster Groves allows hospitals. Hospitals in this case is not an acute care hospital. Rather, it's a facility to provide better care for the kids, a betterment of the campus, an involvement of the campus. There's been decades of residential care that has been provided for children, and it will evolve as stated up there. 77-bed, 1-story pediatric mental health facility for inpatient and residential care with a full continuum of outpatient mental health services. So 65 inpatient beds replacing those residential beds are for shorter stays, 5 to 7 days. Inpatient beds are for kids who need close medical attention. The 12 residential beds are the longer-term beds, 2 months plus. Residential beds are for kids experiencing emotional and mental health challenges where kids benefit from extended clinical treatment. This isn't an ordinary hospital. There is no emergency room. There was a lot of discussion about emergency room, noise from sirens and lights. That's not the case with this facility. That would be the case for a hospital of acute care, but this is not of acute care. Children will most often arrive by private transport. Ambulance arrivals, if required, will be prearranged and directed to arrive without lights or sirens. The current K-12 school, community buildings, community-based services, and cell tower, which was approved in '92, will continue as they are today. With your recommendation, approval, and adoption of the City Council, we can implement the changes to the current campus. That includes the demolition of 2 buildings. That has occurred. Those obsolete old buildings were demolished and construction has stopped. But the replacement building, which would be the hospital, will be the inpatient facility with state-of-the-art features built to exacting regulatory and clinical safety standards. The front door, which you see in this exhibit, is the west elevation facing North Rock Hill Road. Services will be reduced, the number of residential care beds, creates inpatient services, also adds a continuum of outpatient mental health services. So the change from the current master plan from 2013 is basically an 18% reduction in population on the campus. The site selection. So we as professionals, our team of professionals, have the burden of proof, both to the Planning Commission and to the City Council, as does the professionals of the city, the professional planners that are in place with the City of Webster Groves, the police chief, the fire chief. Those are your professionals. Those are the ones you rely on. They're the ones that we demonstrate as well as you. How do we indicate that this site is adequate? So in the July 1st, 2024 city staff memo, it was staff's opinion that the proposed request to revert the property back to the A3 zoning district prior to 2013 major educational district is in compliance with the existing comprehensive plan. The residential zoning has been in place since the 1920s on this property. The same zoning as the properties that abut the property to the east and to the south and to the west, A3 zoning. The city's comprehensive plan identifies the subject site as being within an area designated as public institutional community, which allows for hospitals and institutional use via conditional use permit. St. Louis Children's Hospital conducted a comprehensive national search for a partner. To help address the pediatric mental health crisis, St. Louis Children's Hospital selected KVC due to their expertise and proven track record. So, the mental wellness campus builds upon 150 years of providing care for children on 23.3 acres in Webster Groves. So this isn't a greenfield site. This has been a facility, as you look on the bar chart. Since 1869, it's been providing some form of care for children, mental wellness. And we want to evolve this campus. Demolish obsolete buildings, build new state-of-the-art, one-story building to provide ongoing care in a safer, more modern facility. As you can see on the graph, there were periodic changes which occurred over the years. And from 1975 to 2012, while it was zoned to A3, there were 8 conditional use permits prior to the 2013. So what we're doing and what we're asking of this commission is not inconsistent with the history of this particular piece of property. We're asking for conditional use permits within the A3 zoning, which historically has been done. Today, it is time to further evolve and meet the mental wellness for our children. This location will provide a full continuum of care in one location, one that is centrally located, is peaceful, and ideal healing environment for children. So Trish Lolo, the president, who's with us tonight, Lindsay Stevenson, president of KVC, Trish with St. Louis Children's Hospital, I was with her, and we met with one resident of Webster Groves that would see us. And she explained the differentiating factor between this property and St. Louis Children's Hospital on the BJC campus. There's 14 beds, they're on the 7th floor. Today, there's 9 kids that have been in the emergency room for 6 days or longer. The healing environment on the 7th floor of an institutional building, looking out at other institutional buildings, is not the healing environment that's desired for these children. Providing care in residential neighborhoods allows for patients to experience a quieter, more therapeutic environment that supports healing, allows for community connection to typical day-to-day life, offers accessibility to families who visit or who need to return for outpatient follow-up care. Kids receiving treatment thrive when they can look outside, see trees, people, pets, and other signs of normal life. The 23.3 acre campus is not overburdened. It has 60% open green space. The building footprint comprehensively of all the buildings, including the new hospital, is only 14.7% coverage of the site. We contend the mental wellness campus will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. I'll have a site plan in a moment. The change in zoning from MEC to A3 is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and decades of the same zoning and the same use, providing wellness for children. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will maintain the residential green space, park-like feel, which is essential to serving kids receiving care. My experience, neighbors and neighbors on medical campus affiliated with BJC, the neighbors speak how highly, what a great neighbor, the safety, the property values. They don't go down, they go up. The maintenance, the ongoing maintenance, the security, they're a benefit. They're a benefit to the community of city of Webster Groves. They're a benefit to the entire community of St. Louis as a region. The site plan. So a lot has been spoken about the inappropriateness of the site plan. So what's in blue is the new footprint. It replaces the two obsolete buildings. Zoning it back to A3 district, as stated previously, is consistent with all the surrounding property within Webster Groves, going back to 1920 to 2013. The proposed hospital will be a one-story structure, as you saw on the first slide, not exceeding 35 feet, and it's identified as the blue shading. The campus provides well landscape buffers, providing 60% open space. The buildings are centrally located and represent approximately 14.7% coverage. The campus maintains a perimeter park-like feel, maintaining proper buffers to be compatible for a residential setting. Access to North Rock Hill Road has been shifted and access is limited to one driveway versus two driveways as previously presented. And we'll explain that a little bit when we get to the traffic slide. There's been questions about transport into the building, transports from the building. There's been questions regarding the fencing. So there is a secure door on the northwest corner of the building, highlighted in yellow. That is the overhead door that goes up for transport that needs to be secured, and then the door comes down. With regards to fencing, the campus isn't fenced. There's been a lot described about the 12-foot fence. The 12-foot fence is in purple, and it's limited to the east side of the building and the courtyard, central to the building. And then the 6-foot segmented fences are in orange. Nothing around the perimeter, all within the center court of the building. We put the bird's eye view looking down on the fence. You would never have the bird's eye view, but you can see how difficult it is to see the fence with the landscaping. Imagine trying to see that fence from North Gore Avenue or College Avenue. You're not going to see it. You're certainly not going to see it from North Rock Hill Road. Security. Following the 8-5 public hearing, St. Louis Children's Hospital, KVC, provided a written detailed security and safety plan. It was submitted through a confidentiality statute to the city police and fire chiefs for their review, comments, and concurrence. Following their initial review, a meeting between both chiefs, Estevez, Ellis, City Attorney Bruntwager, Trish Lolo, Lindsay Stevenson, myself, and other members of BJC and KVC security team met to review questions which police and fire had relative to the plan. There were several takeaways from that meeting. And the big one, the question, St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC take ownership for the safety of the entire mental wellness campus, including the hospital, outpatient care setting, parking lots, and landscape spaces. So not just the interior of the building, the whole campus, take ownership. And that was agreed, and that was codified or summarized in a memorandum of bullet points, of which both the police and the fire chiefs signed, the two presidents sitting in the front row signed. It's their commitment. We can't share all the details of the security plan, but rest assured that security plan is here in City Hall and it's under a confidentiality agreement. So what we agreed, and I heard a lot about this in training and so forth, with ongoing partnership with Webster Groves Police and Fire is the top priority. St. Louis Children's and KVC will do the following. They will provide police and fire departments with training manual and welcome both departments to attend training programs, certification classes, and annual safety drills. They'll promote bidirectional communication partnership with quarterly meetings with police and fire departments. Ensure 911 is not called to assist with medically stable transfers. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC have multiple transport teams already in place. Ensure EMS and transferring hospitals will refrain from using lights or sirens for patient arrival. Those are prearranged, so that can be taken care of. Simple measure. Measures are in place to support the safety of patients, staff, and the surrounding community include, again, we're talking about a modern state-of-the-art building, all the regulatory requirements. So access control, facility and outdoor security features, staffing, staff training, patient transportation. Examples of safety measures include dedicated 24/7 safety security officers, patient observation technology, technology to activate alarms as patients near doorways on patient care units, secure exterior doorways requiring badge swipe and personalized 4-digit PIN, secure admitting within an enclosed space with a garage door. The police and fire chiefs, that's who we have to go to, that's who we work with. They concur that this project will not, in the following, endorsed by their signature, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the general welfare of the community, overtax public utilities. The concurrence letter executed between St. Louis Children's Hospital, BJC, KVC, and Webster Groves and Police is part of the packet that was published last week. Traffic. Similar to the security information, following the 8/5/24 public hearing, we took the questions and comments regarding traffic and pedestrian safety and assembled our team to address. That meeting, you were without a planning director, you were without a public works official. There was nobody to provide you the technical assistance on the traffic study. A resident who happened to be a professional traffic engineer asked questions. We took those questions seriously, and that's the gentleman that I reached out to, as well as both Lee Cannon with CBB and Chris Beard with Lockmuller Group, both sitting here today. So several items took place. First, Lockmuller Group was engaged. Mr. Chris Beard with Lockmuller brings experience specifically to BJC St. Louis Children's Hospital facilities and an additional level of trip generation understanding. A meeting was held in September at City Hall with the new city planner and Public Works Director to reaffirm and establish the traffic impact study scope of services. We had scope of services from previous planning director. We wanted to make sure that we were aligned, not just on what their desire was, but the questions that were asked of the Planning Commission and the comments that were made by the public. The result, traffic impact evaluation determined that St. Louis Children's Hospital KVC Mental Wellness Campus project would not substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. So how did we get to that conclusion? An updated traffic study was submitted to the city in response to the questions of the commissioners and the public. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC brought in the second traffic engineering firm to confirm the traffic study methodology and ensure the accuracy of the findings. The updated study reflects the collaboration of CBB and Lockmuller. Any of you, you've all been on this commission for a long time. Those are two very reputable traffic engineering companies in St. Louis, and they worked collaboratively together, answering questions that staff had, answering questions that I had, and answering the questions that the residents had. The big kicker was the traffic generation. So what was in the original traffic study actually overstated trips and generation. It was based on an acute hospital versus this program, which includes a number of staff, patients. The previous study using the acute hospital data, as I mentioned, overstated traffic impacts for this children's mental health facility. A standard acute care hospital includes activities such as surgery, ER, imaging lab. I heard many people talk about that today. That will not be provided in this facility. The previously planned new driveway on Rock Hill Road opposite Bismarck, which had a level service of F, one because of the overstatement, and the other, the fact is it's a three-way intersection. You're adding a fourth leg to the intersection. We relocated it, moved it further to the south, about 150 feet north of where home exists today, in a new location with providing adequate sight distance and avoiding the Bismarck Avenue. So the results confirmed by both traffic engineers show that no Webster Grove intersections degrade in service. That's different than the TIS that was before you in August. The proposal would marginally affect traffic on Rock Hill Road by no more than 4%, which is within typical variation on any roadway on any given day. And again, the level of service is not changing. Existing travel levels of service will be maintained within the city of Webster Groves. Rock Hill Road and Gore Avenue were found to be safer than similar roadways within the city. There is no expected impact to roadway safety or pedestrians and bicycles. So there was a safety analysis done both on pedestrian, cyclists. There was crash data provided by the police department for a number of years. That was researched. And an opinion letter was prepared by Lockmuller Group. And concluding that there is no safety issue. There are no safety issues. The only safety issue is occasionally somebody not crossing the street at a crosswalk, mid-block, as opposed to going up to the intersection where the stoplight is. A second meeting was held with city staff, CBB, Lockmuller Group, and myself. We revised our collective team findings and made our formal submission addressing all staff comments. That's the TIS and the two letters that were posted with the memorandum and the agenda last week. And city staff concurs with the applicant's submittals, which demonstrate that the property conditional use permits would not substantially increase traffic and congestion. So again, the burden is on us to prove to the city, prove to this commission, that we are not adversely impacting a number of factors. And they've been said by others. I'm saying them again here tonight. Lastly, Trish and I met with a resident who expressed concerns about two other intersections that were not part of either scoping meeting with the city staff, but they were the Kirkham North Rock Hill Road, Kirkham Gore intersection, and then concerns with buses going down Dornell Drive. So Lockmuller Group was engaged to do further studies on those, and they have concluded, and they have film, they have video. There is no intersection issues or no traffic congestion at those two intersections. And what was viewed were no buses going down Dornell. So these are available to the planning commission if they'd like that information. But again, it was a resident that asked that we assemble that information. And so we did that. And again, the reach out to the residents is what we do. It's not scary. I send an email, I give my phone number. They can continue to ask me questions after this meeting, following this meeting before the city council. We want to engage. We want to have dialogue. We want to be good neighbors. So next steps. So there's been some questions about St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC. So these are the facts. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will jointly build and own a new pediatric behavioral health hospital and will renovate an existing building to support outpatient services. Each party will contribute funds to the joint venture. St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC will jointly govern the JV, joint venture, making decisions through majority vote. KVC will manage the day-to-day operations in alignment with agreed upon St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC quality, operational, and security metrics. St. Louis Children's partnered Washington University psychiatric team will provide medical coverage. There was a question about affordable. St. Louis Children's Hospital and BJC through their charity care policy will be a part of this project. Both organizations are committed to long-term success of the joint venture and the services to be provided to children and their families. There is no set expiration or termination of the agreement between St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC. If the ownership structure were to change, an amended conditional use permit application and this process would be required to start all over. This conditional use permit doesn't run with the ground. Future expansion, future projects, there are none planned at this time. But if there were changes to what I just said, the coverage, the square footage of buildings, the open space, that all has to come back through the city. The building is not designed with a vertical expansion or a horizontal expansion. It's not designed to have any of those. So there is no plans to make expansion as part of this application. This application, as we presented tonight, as we presented the last two, that is the application, that is the request. We find it to be consistent with the zoning ordinances of the city of Webster Groves, and we do believe that we've been able to demonstrate that we do not have the following. I don't always read these, but they've been read, so I'm the last speaker, I'm second to last. So we believe that the information submitted by our team through the course of the petition process demonstrates the following. No adverse traffic hazards or congestion, no fire hazards, no change in the character of the neighborhood, no adverse impact to the general welfare of the community, no adverse effect on public utilities. We appreciate your consideration and respectfully request a favorable recommendation to City Council to allow this incredible opportunity of providing improved mental wellness for children to continue within the city of Webster Groves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stock at this point?
I have one question. On slide 6, and I think I'm just asking this so I can make sure I understand it right. The site plan said the new entrance moves north 150 feet. It mentioned moving the single entrance north 150 feet. Did you mean south? Are you talking about the current entrance or
I'm
the
talking about
planned?
we're shifting it north about 150 feet from the current.
From
home.
its current. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. And I, as one of the speakers said, I appreciate the effort to revise the traffic study based on previous comments. I think it's much improved and speaks to the accident history, pedestrian traffic, and changes the level of service. I also appreciate the work to have the fire and police representatives on board. One question I still struggle a little bit with is some of the speakers talked about these are located generally in rural areas or not in residential neighborhoods. I didn't necessarily hear that spoken to directly or see it in the application materials. Is that something somebody could speak to?
Well, I think, in one way or another, I'm trying to speak to it. I'm trying to address that issue in the fact that the city of Webster Groves allows hospital and institutional and schools in the A3 zoning district. But how do they do it? It's via conditional use permit. So what's the appropriate development within that? So if you have 23.3 acres and you maintain 60% green space and you have a building coverage of 14.7%, we contend you're providing something that's compatible, within your zoning ordinance, because you do allow hospitals and schools. So providing those green buffers and that space and being able to demonstrate that you don't have adverse impact to traffic, we contend that we're meeting the city zoning ordinance.
I'm sorry, I was reading the closed caption. That's
Okay.
why I was looking down here.
Oh,
I didn't mean to
okay.
be rude.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was trying to read the closed caption. So I didn't be rude. Yeah, I can understand that argument. It does seem a worthwhile argument. Does that speak to, and last question, does that speak to perhaps the safety issue? Or are you simply referring that issue to the agreement letter with the police and fire?
Well, that should give you the comfort. You have a police chief, you have a fire chief, and fire talks about no increase in fire hazards. He also speaks to overburdening the public utilities, your 911, your ambulance. You don't want to be overburdened. We're taking that into account. The police, they talk about the safety and the security, and making them comfortable is the first step. And all we can share with anybody outside the public, because we can't get everybody, the bad guys don't need to have the security, not that anybody's bad here, but you can't have that security plan out in the public knowledge. That security plan has to be restricted. And I would contend that the Planning Commission relies on professionals. And in this case, that's your police, fire. And if they endorse and concur, we believe strongly that we've met that burden of proof.
Good. All right. I've got a few questions. First of all, I don't know if this is a question for you or Mr. Beard. The traffic study impacts, I assume that's versus a no build.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
correct.
is that current condition with the campus as it is or as it operated previously?
Yeah, just for the record, my name is Chris Beard. I'm a professional traffic operations engineer with Lockmuller Group, 411 North 10th Street, 63101. Yes, we did do a no build. So a 2027 no build, which is what we anticipate to be the opening year of the facility. So we grew existing traffic out 3 years based on a trend line of background growth, and then compared that to conditions with the proposed facility in place.
Okay. And trip generation, I assume, was based on or included consideration of when shift changes.
Correct.
Take
So
place.
we went with KVC and Children's Hospital. We developed a very detailed operational program of when shift changes would occur, how many staff would be there, when physicians would come, what visiting hours were, discharge of patients, admittance of patients. We went through all of that data and developed the trip generation off of exactly how this facility would operate.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You said you were the second to last speaker?
Well, I thought I heard at the beginning of the meeting that Mr. Myers was going to speak.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
anyone else who cares to from the applicant? No? Any other questions for the applicant? You mentioned it was mentioned, you mentioned it was a JV. Is there a senior partner to the JV?
Go ahead, Trish. I wanted you to speak.
Sorry, St. Louis Children's Hospital is the majority owner.
Okay.
So
For the
yes.
record, can you identify
Oh,
yourself?
sorry, Trish Lalo, 453 Yorkshire Place, 63109. Yes, St. Louis Children's Hospital is the majority owner in this partnership.
Thank you. Any other questions? Grace? No. All right, per our revised agenda, we'll have the planning director, there you are, come up with a staff recommendation, please.
Good evening. My name is Robert Myers. I'm Webster Groves Planning and Development Director. And previously in your packets, you had a staff recommendation. You had a staff report from a previous planning director. And I wanted to provide my own perspective for tonight's proceedings. First, I'd like to say that there's three different actions that are before you tonight. One is a rezoning or zoning map amendment application. Second, there's a conditional use permit for an institution, a school specifically. And third, there's a conditional use permit for a hospital. And those, the zoning and conditional use permits have different considerations. So I would like to ask if you could, whenever you're ready to deliberate and vote, if you could take votes, separate votes on those three different actions, because they have different considerations. First, let me address the zoning map amendment, which has, again, different considerations, not the same criteria necessarily as conditional use permits. But the zoning map amendments, the Plan Commission recommendation should address the proposed zoning in relation to applicable city codes, the city's comprehensive plan, and compatibility with adjoining permitted developments and uses. First, the city's comprehensive plan. So the 2017 future land use map recommends public/institutional/community uses on this property. That's from the 2017 future land use map of the comprehensive plan. Second, in terms of the compatibility of the proposed zoning, what's being proposed is A3, which is the single family residential district. I would also note that the surrounding neighborhoods have A3 zoning. So I do believe that the A3 zoning is compatible with the A3 zoning in terms of zoning categories. For your consideration, let me refer just briefly to the use table and what uses would be allowed in the A3 district, which is being proposed here tonight. So permitted by right in the A3 district, single-family dwellings, bed and breakfasts, group homes, group residential facilities, home occupations, nursing homes, sorry, conditional use permit, public safety facilities, child care centers, golf courses, parks and playgrounds, public libraries, educational facilities for elementary school, educational facilities for secondary school. Those are uses that are permitted by right. Some of those have specific rules or regulations they have to follow, even if they're permitted. There's a second set of uses in the A3 district that could be permitted by conditional use permit. And just real quickly, those include nursing home, residential care facility, adult daycare center, athletic fields, cemetery, child daycare center, clinics, community buildings, hospitals, institutions, nurseries and greenhouses, and et cetera. The reason I mention those is that it's good to think about the entire range of uses that can be allowed in the A3 district, just so you'll be aware that potentially in the A3 district, there could be a range of uses. So it's good to consider that entire range of uses. Now, having said that, we're here tonight with sort of a package, set of applications that are interrelated. Yes, they're requesting the underlying zoning be revert back to the A3 district. But in addition to that, they're also requesting those two conditional use permits that I mentioned. The Plan Commission, its charge is to investigate for conditional use permits and report as to the effect of the proposed use or structure upon traffic hazards or congestion, fire hazards, the character of the neighborhood, the general welfare of the community, and the effect on public utilities. So the report of the Plan Commission should address those considerations. Now, what does the report consist of? The report will consist of all of the public comments that have been received, the applicant's documentation, the city staff report, the minutes of the meeting, the audio-visual record, your recommendation, importantly. So those are compose the staff report, excuse me, the report of the Plan Commission to the City Council. The City Council, on the other hand, has their charge is to actually approve with conditions or deny both conditional use permits. They need to take those actions on the two conditional use permits. So in that regard, they have specific thresholds that they look at. It's more specific necessarily than what you look at. So those thresholds are, would the conditional use substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion? Would the conditional use substantially increase fire hazards? Would it adversely affect the character of the neighborhood or overtax public utilities? So real quickly, if I could just make a few comments on these different criteria. In terms of traffic hazard or congestion, the applicant's amended traffic study, in my thinking, unambiguously demonstrates that no substantial increase in traffic hazards or congestion can be expected, whether for motorists, pedestrians, or bicyclists. The reason I state that is, again, it's asking the question, would it substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion? The previous traffic study that was done originally, it did show that for about 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon, there was an increase in congestion specifically at Bismarck. What they've done is they've, following up on that result, instead of having, let me get this right, four different driveways across the entire campus, they're now going down to 3 different driveways. In fact, they're combining the 2 driveways proposed originally on Rock Hill Road as one and making a mid-block instead of lining it up with Bismarck. So that's a little bit different. In so doing, they're improving the sight distance better from what the current where the current driveway is located, in my estimation. The second criteria, would it substantially increase fire hazards? I would say, start with the big picture. The proposed uses as a hospital, school are not uses which by their nature would substantially increase the risk of hazards. Also, the proposed hospital will be new construction, and the buildings in the site plan will meet the effective building and fire codes during the building plan review process. We're not at that stage. If this should be approved, obviously there's lots of other work to do, including a site plan review and building permits. And those where specific codes would come into play. Also, they would have to be any permits applied for and received would obviously have to be in compliance with the conditional use permit as well. Additionally, the fire chief has reviewed the security plan, which does include an element of fire safety. Would the proposed 2 conditional uses adversely affect the character of the neighborhood? There's a couple of things that come to mind. I've worked in 3 different cities where there was a large hospital presence, and so I do have some observations based on those experiences that come into play in my mind. First is scale. In the other communities where I've worked, the hospital would be 7 or 8 stories or however many stories. Sometimes they were adjacent to a single-family residential neighborhood. In this case, they're proposing a 1-story building. And I agree that the footprint has a large footprint, but the building facade is broken up into smaller elements where there's kind of a push and pull in the facade where it's not all just one long wall facing a single-family block across the street. Second, in some of those other communities where I've worked, some of the land use impacts included helicopter landing pads. That's not what is being proposed here. Some of those other communities that included emergency rooms with ambulances. That's not what's being proposed here. Some of the other communities where I've worked, parking lots were a big deal, and and in several cases, parking lots being, I'll just say, pushed into a residential neighborhood. In this case, it's contained within its campus of 23 acres and is not a concern in that regard. For the school, one of the considerations from other communities is queuing of buses. Will the buses queue out onto other local streets and block traffic? In this case, they have a very long driveway and they have a school that's been operating for years there. Basically, they're wanting to continue operating a school at that same location. Another question about adversely impacting character of neighborhoods I've seen from other communities for schools specifically, football stadiums and assemblies. As you might imagine, football stadiums, they have these large assemblies that come out, includes loudspeakers, includes noise from crowds. That's not what's being proposed here. So those are some questions that came to mind talking about adverse impacts, adversely impacting the character of the neighborhood. In terms of adversely affecting the general welfare of the community, I think the security plan that was submitted, and then also the traffic study, they, in my mind, do not raise concerns about public safety. Additionally, the redevelopment of the site would require conformance to the city's stormwater requirements. I believe that as developed years ago, that the site doesn't necessarily right now meet all the city's stormwater requirements, but should this site be redeveloped, it would definitely need to. They do have an area or several areas on the campus that would allow them to retain or detain stormwater to meet those requirements. And then the last criteria that the city council should consider or must consider is overtaxing public utilities. So there's the typical public utilities that a lot of times should be considered, such as electricity, natural gas, water, and sewer. But in this case, you might also think of, if you extend the idea of a public utility to emergency services. According to the applicant, they're going to be providing, they have their own ambulances that will be providing services. And so they wouldn't necessarily be calling on the local ambulance district in order to provide those services to this property. For those reasons, the Planning and Development Department recommends approval for both of the conditional use permits. Again, my recommendation would be that you take separate votes on those three different considerations, whenever you're ready to do so.
Okay.
Can I
Any
clarify?
questions for staff?
I want to clarify. So you're recommending, because there's two conditional use permits and a rezoning that's being requested from the applicant. Would you, obviously, if you would like all those passed at one time versus some of them passing, some of them not passing, that sort of thing, would you prefer a vote on all of them at one time, or would you prefer individual votes?
One vote on all three matters.
Okay. And does everyone understand that? So it's more complicated in that one vote that you will be taking into account all three of the requests, and all three of them will be voted on at one time.
About that.
There'd simply be a motion, and in that motion, which will happen anyway, that motion will be to approve the three, and each one will have to be named in the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we go through the factors separately during our executive session?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for planning director. Could you tell us again what is currently allowed on the site under that educational zoning? What we approved in that is approved on that site now? It's the school?
Right. There's more information in the packet from, it's detailed in great specificity in the packet presented at the July Plan Commission meeting.
Right, right. I'm
And
just trying to, I don't have that right with me right
Yeah.
now. So
There's
it's
the-
100 and 200 something students are allowed there, maximum
Yeah,
residential units.
I can't cite the specific of what's been allowed right now by the city, but I do know that what's being proposed is a reduction from what was approved by the city some years ago for an ultimate build out.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anything to add to that?
I have one more question for staff.
Okay.
And I think you just confirmed it. It's just a confirmation. The commission, when we ask, when we go through our 5 factors for consideration, we are considering those against the current approved zoning, not the current use. Is that correct?
For the 5 factors? Yeah.
Yes. That we've cited, increase to traffic, adverse impacts, those criteria are against what the approved conditional use permit and zoning prescribes, not the current use of the site.
You could look at it either way. I think you could look at it in terms of 5 factors for the institution, proposed institution conditional use, and the 5 factors for the proposed hospital conditional use. But I guess it depends on your viewpoint. You could compare the levels, for instance, of what was what's already been approved by the city.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. We're comparing against what's already approved, even if it's not being used.
It's the approved use.
Thank you.
So it's the
Yes.
difference between what is requested in this instance versus what is currently approved for that land.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I,
Go ahead.
if I can get your input back to, and you mentioned your previous experience in other munis with hospitals and the difference in their size. But some of the questions, some of the comments I heard raised from speakers about the character of the neighborhood have to do with issues of, and again, as asked George, elopement or safety, or even the proximity to highways, and what's make the use not compatible with the residential neighborhood. How would you respond to those issues?
I look at it in terms of land use impacts and what those impacts are on neighbors. The locational analysis is not really my purview because I'm being asked to assess this particular use at this particular location. So it's not really within my realm to say it better belongs somewhere else. And that's kind of the direction I'm coming from.
Just to add,
Yeah, that doesn't mean compared to somewhere else. I mean, compared to here, the specific issues of perhaps elopement at this site into this neighborhood, or the lack of places to stay or highway access in this neighborhood. And I certainly agree, but if there are other sites out there that was mentioned over and over, and yeah, I don't see that in the 5 factors. I would agree that's not really our purview.
I guess I
just have a couple more questions.
yeah.
We talked about hospital and that this was, the traffic study was amended to our definition of a hospital in our city code doesn't allow for that kind of distinction like the traffic study did. So therefore, when we say hospital, like when we write up this conditional use permit for a hospital use, we can't specifically say it's for a therapeutic hospital or this type of hospital, correct?
Well, 2 things. First, when I use the term hospital, I'm referring to the zoning code. So the zoning definition is an institution providing medical and surgical care for humans only, for both inpatients and outpatients, including medical service, training, and research facilities. Now, when you speak about, are you asking that if we approve a hospital, they can do any and all hospitals, or whether it's limited?
I'm saying, can we, in writing of this conditional use permit, limit it to a therapeutic, like what are we calling it, a wellness, a therapeutic hospital or something like that? Can we do that under our code, or is this correct by just saying it's a hospital? Or I see we've limited it to the number of beds and all that kind of stuff. Is that as specific as I guess what you're saying is right. Our definition of hospital is very broad.
Right.
So by writing it the number of beds and what their uses are, is that, that's as specific as we can get?
Well, they've applied for this specific use of this specific type of hospital at this location. And so should it be approved, they would be bound by their application and by the parameters of the conditional use permit, any conditions.
Okay.
The conditional use permit will result in an ordinance that would go to council. That ordinance would restrict their ultimate use. It would, well, I guess that ordinance would allow certain uses, but doesn't allow the broad range that you're concerned about. It would be limited to what their application is and what's being approved.
And that's what I'm asking. And then my second question has to do with what the applicant specified, that if there were any changes to the number of beds, the size of the hospital, change in ownership, all of those kind of things, that would have to come back to the planning commission and the council to change anything that was already approved, correct?
Essentially, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
That's right, particularly as to ownership and a change in size. Those would require new applications. They would have to come back before you and ultimately city council in order to get approval if they intended to do any of those things.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Or clarification, Tony. So what you're asking, so under what we have under staff recommendations, the CUP for hospital use, the second, number 2 on there, it says the following is a list of permitted and accessory uses that shall be allowed with the institution: inpatient hospital, offices, gymnasium, parks and playgrounds. And then down in number 4, it says a maximum of 65 licensed inpatient health beds and 12 psychiatric residential treatment facility beds. Is that what you're looking for? That specificity?
That's exactly what
Okay, that's in.
All right, I was going to save a few for executive session, but I'll go ahead now. One, did Webster Grove's Police Department review the security processes? Were they privy to any of the security processes for previous owners? Do we know?
To my knowledge, they were not. We were only presented information from KBC and from Children's regarding what their intentions were with the project itself.
Okay. In response to Grace's question about, what are we going to weigh the factors against, and it's the current, right? Now the applicant has stated fairly unequivocally there are no plans for expansion. It's not made to expand, but were they to expand and the 5 factors were to come forward again, would we then be weighing that against what we're going to discuss tonight, or back to the original? So is there a possibility for, I'll call it scope creep, of de minimis impacts over time?
Sure. So if there is a change, and it is a substantial change, then under those circumstances, they would have to come back and they would have to make an application. And it would be measured against the use as it exists at the time they make the application.
Okay. And finally, so zoning map amendment. So we have the 5 factors that we'll discuss with regard to the CUPs. What is the guidance with regard to approval of the zoning map amendment?
Approval of the zoning ordinance.
Are there considerations we are bound to?
You mean, so simply with respect to reverting the zoning from the MEC back to an A3?
Yes.
So when you're dealing with it, this is it's a separate consideration. You're looking for authority from our ordinances. Is that accurate?
Is there anything in addition to it being in line with the comprehensive plan?
And consistent with zoning, which is within the comprehensive plan, consistent with the zoning in the nearby areas.
Okay. Okay. I will mention there was a comment about postponing vote, if anyone cares to make a motion. Okay. All right. All right. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Moved and seconded. Do we need to roll call? All right, let's start down here.
Aye.
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 Oh. Aye.
All right. We're in executive session. Discussion. Oh, yeah, we got to read, yeah.
Oh.
Yep. You got to read our application.
Got it.
24 PC 06, SLCH KVC Mental Wellness Campus, 330 North Gore Avenue. An application by St. Louis Children's Hospital and KVC Behavior Healthcare Missouri Incorporated to revert the Webster Grove zoning map from MEC Major Educational Campus District to the underlying A3 10,000 square foot residence district and approval of 3 conditional use permits to allow a hospital use, an institutional use, and an existing cell tower on a 23.3 acre tract. Was there 3 or 2?
There's the cell tower.
Yeah.
There's an existing cell tower, so that'd actually be, so it'd be 4 things.
No, that's the third.
That's the third.
That's the third.
The hospital institution and the cell tower.
Yeah, turn your mic.
Yeah, your microphone's on.
Hmm?
There you go.
Your mic wasn't on. Okay, do we have a staff recommendation on the cell tower?
No, let me clarify about that, please. They applied for a conditional use permit for the cell tower, but it's not actually needed because it has underlying, there's about 1/10 of an acre of industrial zoning underneath this MEC. So if you peel off the MEC, you have like 1/10 of an acre of industrial zoning with a 65-foot cell tower on there, and it can operate under the existing rules. So it's really unnecessary, but they did apply for it. And then later on, they were informed that it was unnecessary.
All right.
So we could drop them.
All right, discussion.
I been talking about, I can keep going.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah,
there's
but
the-
yes. Mike.
So there's the 5 factors. And our last 2 speakers, we had a speaker speak to how to vote. Scroll. How to make a decision. One of the speakers talked to. Their last 2 speakers spoke about, specifically about the 5 factors and how we need to follow the law. And I would agree wholeheartedly with that. And a lot of the discussion we had, as heartbreaking and tragic as it was, didn't really speak, in my mind, to the 5 factors. That's not at all to dismiss anything that anybody said, but we're obligated to speak to the 5 factors. So, to me, I believe they've addressed the traffic issue. The fire hazard issue with the new buildings go away. The general welfare of the community, we've heard over and over that these things are needed in the community. The public utilities, to me, kind of goes away. And the only exception perhaps was emergency services, which, to be frank, I never even thought of until this came up as a public utility. I thought of sewers and water and electric. But as the applicant spoke, our city staff, the fire chief, and the police chief have said it's not an issue. So I wouldn't feel real comfortable arguing with that. I'm going to have to defer to them. So the only one to me that even perhaps seems out there that I've asked about a little bit would be the character of the neighborhood. And if we take that back to it fits in with that original zoning, then I suppose that goes away also. But I do think it's important to stick to the 5 factors, and 4 of them certainly I think they've addressed beyond doubt.
I'll go. I agree with you also on the traffic. I think the traffic study spoke. I'm glad they came back and sort of qualified that. The fire hazard, yes, when you have the fire and the police department signing off on it, then I'm okay with that. The general welfare of the community, overtaxing of public utilities. So yes, to me, adversely affecting the character of the neighborhood. I comparing it to what it is there now is it's not a, well, I don't know, it's a school, which kind of in itself is a treatment facility. And if for the fact that our zoning doesn't allow for hospitals under that major educational zone, we wouldn't even be reviewing this. So when I look at what's there now and what they're proposing, it's actually a reduction in the number of people on the site. It's just you're kind of rearranging what they're doing there. If we don't approve it, that's not going away. It's gonna stay there. So I have to look at it in terms of if you're reducing kind of the use and you're actually making it better and providing a facility that's updated and more secure than what's there now, I have to go along with that also.
I'll go next. I think that some of the comments from the community that we heard were very much focused on current state, which is not necessarily the approved CUP. So the facility is not operating at its maximum approved levels. So I do acknowledge, I think we will see an increase in use of the site, and that will be felt in the community. Especially during, I mean, there's a time of transition, right, proposed here with construction and all of that. And so hearing, from the neighbors and considering that, I totally understand that. I happen to be a direct neighbor. I totally understand it. But those issues I don't think are unaddressed by the applicant. And I don't think that they fall within our purview. Just because the current approved use is not being met does not mean our comparison changes. Our comparison is against the approved use, not the actual use. So that's my long way of saying I agree with you. I think the burden of proof has been met on the 5 factors from my perspective. However, from the community perspective, I'm not sure how we deal with that, because I do think there will be a measurable impact. I just don't think it's within this commission's scope to address, if that makes sense.
I don't know that I have much more to add that hasn't been said. I think when it comes to the rezoning, it's in line with the city plan. It's not significantly different than what's there now. And then when we look at the CUPs, we consider the 5 factors and it's in line with that. So there are a lot of things to consider. Those aren't all necessarily things that are in front of us today. So as far as what's in front of us with rezoning, being in line with the comprehensive plan and looking at the 2 CUPs for hospital use, for institutional use, I don't have concern with the 5 factors, and that's what's in front of us. Very sympathetic to the concerns that were raised regarding KVC, and appreciate that people took the time to talk about those, but our job that's in front of us is not to pass judgment on the application unless it were to impact one of these 5 factors, which I don't think it does.
I think what they're putting in is exactly what is there now. And the only thing that's making everybody so upset is the word hospital. And we all have our own ideas of what a hospital is, which we always see ambulances, emergency stuff. It's just not there. I think we're okay.
It's not what's there now, but it's what's been there before.
Right.
Anything?
I have nothing to add, that hasn't already been said.
You care to repeat a point made by a previous speaker? I mean, I will say, I mean, as evidenced by what we've heard tonight, this is it's a difficult issue on both sides. And frankly, if this was a new use, I don't know how I would feel. But given what's been there in the past, I think I'm in agreement with what I'm hearing from the other commissioners, and that's it. Over that, I don't see a substantial changes in factors. Staff has made a series of recommendations. Does anyone take issue with any of the CUP requirements? Yeah. Robert, is there a chance we could get the recommendations up on the screen in short order?
Patients.
Yeah, I've got them. Yeah, I've got them, but.
The staff
frankly, we all don't. Yeah.
staff recommendations to be presented, since we don't have them
Well,
printed.
I've got a hard copy, but
yeah, I don't know if that's going to help you because Peter's advice is to take one vote.
agree, but you've still made recommendations for the requirements of the CUPs. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. All right. Well, I could ask you to read. All right. Tell you what, let's make it, let's make them public. Can you read them for the record?
Sure, sure. So the CUP for institution use.
Microphone, please. It's a little hard to hear you.
CUP for institution use. Number one, all provisions of city code shall apply except as expressly modified in this ordinance. Number two, the following is a list of permitted accessory uses that shall be allowed with the institution. A, educational facility, special needs. B, offices. C, gymnasium. D, parks and playgrounds. 3, setbacks shall be as follows. A, 60-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along North Rock Hill Road. B, 200-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along North Gore Avenue. C, 30-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along Home Avenue. D, 70-foot setbacks from all other property lines. 4, the daytime population shall not exceed 130 students, 24 partial hospitalization program individuals, and 24 intensive outpatient program individuals. 5, the property shall maintain a minimum of 319 parking spaces based on the preliminary plan. Should additional square footage be added in the future, all parking regulations will be met per the city code. 6, applicant shall demonstrate compliance with all MSD requirement prior to construction and shall construct all stormwater improvements in accordance with MSD requirements then in force. 7, Knox boxes will be required on all new and renovated buildings for emergency access. 8, fixed fire protection requirements may require additional water lines and fire hydrants. D, the plan needs to incorporate perimeter access to the property for emergency vehicles. So the next one's a CUP for hospital use.
I think they're all the same except for 2 and 4. We want to.
So CUP for hospital use. 1, all provisions of city code shall apply except as expressly modified in this ordinance. 2, the following is a list of permitted accessory uses that shall be allowed with the institution. A, inpatient hospital. B, offices. C, gymnasium. D, parks and playgrounds. 3, setbacks shall be as follows. A, 60-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along North Rock Hill Road. B, 200-foot front yard setback should be maintained along North Gore Avenue. C, 30-foot front yard setback shall be maintained along Home Avenue. D, 70-foot setback from all other property lines. 4, a maximum of 65 licensed inpatient health beds and 12 psychiatric residential treatment facility beds. 5, the property shall maintain a minimum of 319 parking spaces based on the preliminary plan. Should additional square footage be added in the future, all parking regulations will be met per the city code. 6, applicant shall demonstrate compliance with all MSD requirements prior to construction and shall construct all stormwater improvements in accordance with MSD requirements and enforce. 7, Knox boxes will be required on all new buildings for emergency access. 8, fixed fire protection requirements may require additional water lines for fire hydrants. 9, the plan needs to incorporate perimeter access to the building for emergency vehicles.
All right, thank you for indulging me. Any concerns about anything there?
The only thing I was just thinking about, we talked a lot about the maintenance of the property, but we don't approve the site plan. So I know we can't, there's nothing we can do to hold the applicant to that, right?
The site plan will come back to us for approval.
So you don't have an ordinance in front of you. You're approving what has been presented. If there were a substantial change before it went to city council, it would have to come back.
The site plan, after,
It's part of,
if it's approved by council, then they will, that's part of the code. So
Yes.
They will have to come back and
correct,
Okay.
submit their.
correct.
All right, so yeah, just as long as, I guess maybe for the record, right? That's part of our concern with adverse character. So we want to see something like what we saw today when the site plan comes forward, which I don't see why it would be different, but we would expect the applicant to come forward with something like that because we're moving forward in good faith that that's part of the character of the neighborhood.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 24 PC06 SLCH KBC Mental Health Wellness Campus.
Second.
With,
As recommended by staff. Sorry.
we have a second? Second. All right, we'll do a roll call. We'll start with Maddie.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Motion passes.
City council.
Go to city council. All right, next item. Other business, any other business?
No. Business.
Robert? Any other business? No, nothing.
Right.
All right, next regular meeting, December 2nd. Move to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion. Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. I know. Oh, you want to read it off the phone? Oh, my God.
Yeah.